Imagine a single particle of dust drifting in the vacuum between the orbits of Saturn and Uranus. It is silent, unremarkable, older than human civilization, and suspended in an invisible current sculpted by the gravity of distant giants. This dust is part of a structure so vast and intricate that human lifetimes cannot contain its story. And yet, as you lie in your bed, letting your mind drift toward the cosmos, this dust becomes a witness to a reality stranger than any dream. Your consciousness loosens from the bonds of earthly concerns and floats outward, guided not by thrusters or coordinates, but by curiosity. The planets of our solar system trace invisible loops around the sun, a choreography millions of years in the making. Mercury races in tight circles, barely holding itself together in the sun's scorching grip, its days hotter than any furnace, its nights colder than any polar winter. Venus, spinning backward and slow, is a world cloaked in a brutal veil of carbon dioxide, where sulfuric acid rains and winds scream through a pressure-cooked atmosphere. Mars offers us a pause, a desert once wet, with frozen whispers of ancient rivers and canyons that remember oceans. Its peaks scrape the sky with mountains 3 times the height of Everest, and in its shadow, a lingering hope for past life. Jupiter looms as a failed star, so massive that it holds sway over the fates of asteroids and moons alike. It is a world of storm bands and pressure so deep that hydrogen may liquefy into strange, metallic states. Saturn, girdled by its iconic rings, floats with a grace that belies the violent origins of those icy shards. Uranus tips over awkwardly, a world rolling on its side through an orbital waltz that challenges our symmetry-loving minds. Neptune, furthest of the known, hides deep blue tempests and moon orbits that suggest a past collision or theft. These planets, more than spheres of rock and gas, are living testaments to the solar system's evolution. They influence each other subtly, pulling and pushing in resonant harmony. A shift in Neptune's orbit might nudge Pluto, whose icy terrain belies dynamic activity, sending gravitational ripples backward through time. The orbital ballet is not static, it changes with each epoch. And so, when you gaze at the sky and trace a slow-moving point between the stars, know that it is not random. It is a dancer, pulling Earth gently in return. In this gravitational conversation, the moon joins the chorus with its own tale, tidal locked and eternally presenting one face. The moon is a mirror to Earth's past, its plains of basalt, its highlands, its record of cosmic bombardment, all point to a violent genesis. That a single, Mars-sized impactor Theia may have formed it, changed everything. Earth's axis stabilized. Tides began. Life had its first rhythmic heartbeat. The moon is not merely a satellite, it is a partner. It modulates our climate, defines our months, and calls the sea to rise and fall. It reflects sunlight during our darkest hours, offering both romance and revelation. Lunar craters, untouched by erosion, preserve a planetary history book more enduring than any library. Each meteor scar is a sentence, each mare, a chapter of volcanic outflow that smoothed the pages of violence. And though we now dream of Mars, it is the moon that first held our footsteps in another world. Apollo astronauts brought back rocks gray, porous, mundane to some eyes, but in their isotopes were codes, pointing to shared heritage and violent origins. Today, new missions envision a permanent presence, bases that could mine helium-3 laboratories that might test deep space medicine. The moon becomes not a goal, but a gateway. Just as it taught early humans to count the months, it now invites us to count the stars we may reach next. Drifting further, we meet the universe's most paradoxical object, the black hole, a region where the known rules of space and time collapse inward, where gravity becomes a sculptor of destiny. Born from the death of massive stars, black holes compress matter into a singularity infinitely dense, mathematically complete, and physically mysterious. Their horizons mark the edge of visibility, a one-way gate to elsewhere. Yet they are not wholly black. From their perimeter leaks Hawking radiation, a theoretical whisper from quantum foam, suggesting that even these giants may one day die. At the heart of our own galaxy lies Sagittarius A, proof that black holes are not isolated monsters, but keystones of galactic architecture. Around it, stars orbit like bees around an invisible flower, tracing the gravity of nothingness. To fall toward a black hole is to experience time as an asymptote. Outside observers would see you freeze at the horizon, but from your point of view, the fall is smooth, uninterrupted, perhaps even survivable if theory stretches toward exotic space-time geometries. Meanwhile, your light stretched and bent joins an accretion disk where matter burns at relativistic speeds. Gravitational lensing around a black hole is not an illusion, it is a revelation. Distant galaxies curve into arcs, unveiling their hidden symmetries. Astronomers do not simply watch light, they watch light obey gravity, writing curved paths on cosmic paper. Black holes remind us that space and time are not constants. They are pliable, vulnerable to mass and energy, to geometry and curvature. In them lies both the ruin of stars and the birth of understanding. As you drift into sleep, think of them not as terrors, but as teachers asking questions in the language of gravity. Now, as we move into the cold nebulae that cradle new stars, let us follow the currents of gas and time, where birth and death intertwine in molecular shadows. In the faint shadow beyond the edge of the Kuiper Belt, a place where the sun is little more than a bright star in the darkness, unseen currents of gravity draw you farther still. The Voyager probes, long since silent to the human ear, sail past this boundary. These ancient scouts now drift through the heliopause, a liminal zone where solar wind yields to the interstellar medium. It is here, in this threshold, that the protective cocoon of our solar system ends and the galactic sea begins. The idea of boundaries edges that separate one thing from another is a useful human invention. Yet in the cosmos, such delineations blur. The sun's influence fades gradually. It doesn't stop. Just as the mind, when entering sleep, doesn't turn off but slips into another state. In both realms, transition is not a line but a process. Out here, beyond planetary warmth and cometary whispers, lies the Oort cloud, a hypothesized shell of icy debris circling the solar system like a distant echo. Its components are largely unknown, and none have been seen directly. But from this halo, long-period comets are born. Some travel tens of thousands of years before diving toward the sun. To witness such a journey is to glimpse time unspooled. The cosmos does not count hours. It waits with the patience of gravity. Beyond the Oort cloud, imagination must carry what instruments cannot. It is here that speculation becomes necessity. The closest stars, Proxima Centauri and its siblings in the Alpha Centauri system, are still more than 4 light-years away, 40 trillion kilometers. Even our fastest spacecraft would take tens of thousands of years to reach them. And yet, they are next door. Astronomers speak of exoplanets' worlds orbiting other stars, as though they are characters in a grand narrative. Some are scorched gas giants clinging close to their suns. Others are icy wanderers with elongated orbits. A few lie in the so-called habitable zone, where liquid water might persist. Telescopes have detected thousands, their signatures visible in the dimming of starlight or the slight wobble of a parent star. Yet we know little of their surfaces, their skies, or their histories. Each exoplanet is a story half told, a mirror with no reflection. One such world, Kepler 186f, orbits a red dwarf star about 500 light-years away. It is nearly Earth-sized, and though its sun is cooler and dimmer, the planet lies in a zone where warmth might still touch its soil. But what kind of soil? What kind of air? The answers, if they exist, are locked in beams of light that have traveled across half a millennium to reach us. To study them is to perform archaeology with photons. But distance does not equate to isolation. Light connects all things. The photons that warm your skin originated in the sun's core, born of fusion reactions and taking thousands of years to escape before racing to Earth in 8 minutes. Likewise, the starlight we see tonight began its journey before nations fell, before languages were spoken. A single ray is a time capsule, a whisper from the past. In this expanding cosmos, our instruments stretch to catch the whispers. The James Webb Space Telescope, stationed beyond the moon's orbit, unfurls its golden petals to peer at galaxies so distant their light began traveling just a few 100 million years after the Big Bang. Its mission is not only observational, it is forensic. These photons carry the evidence of early stars, infant galaxies, and perhaps even the seeds of cosmic structure. To look back in time is to confront the youth of the universe. When matter first began to coalesce into complexity, Hydrogen and helium were all that existed initially. Heavier elements carbon, nitrogen, iron were forged in stellar hearts and spread by supernovae. You, reading this now, are composed of material that once endured a 1,000 million-degree crucible and exploded outward to form new worlds. It is this elemental continuity that links the micro to the macro. The calcium in your teeth, the iron in your blood, they echo stellar deaths. The gold in your ring was likely formed in the collision of two neutron stars, their cataclysmic merger releasing gravitational waves and rare elements. These waves, ripples in the fabric of space-time, were first directly detected in 2015 by LIGO. Their confirmation not only proved a century-old prediction by Einstein, but opened a new way of hearing the universe. Gravitational waves differ from light. They pass through matter largely unimpeded, carrying information from events that might otherwise remain hidden. They allow us to detect the dance of black holes, the final seconds before cosmic unions, and perhaps someday, the faint tremors from the Big Bang itself. They are, in a way, the heartbeat of the universe. The cosmos communicates in many languages: electromagnetic, gravitational, quantum. To understand it, we must learn to listen with different ears, see with other eyes. As you drift through this imagined darkness, remember you are not a passive observer. Your brain interprets this data, filters it through curiosity, and transforms it into wonder. In deep interstellar space, between the orbits of stars and galaxies, are particles and fields we barely understand. Some call it void, but even emptiness has structure. Quantum fluctuations mean that what appears empty is teeming with potential. Pairs of virtual particles blink in and out of existence, and some theories suggest these fluctuations could create entire universes. So as your thoughts quiet and merge with the silence of sleep, picture not a black void but a field of possibility, one where existence is the rare blossom, not the default. In that silence, the cosmos dreams too, in patterns of probability and loops of light. And you, part dust, part question, float onward into the dark, seeking not an answer, but the right kind of question. Imagine now a single hydrogen atom, adrift between galaxies. It is not pulled by stars, not claimed by clusters. It is an orphan of the cosmos, floating through a realm so sparse that a cubic meter may contain less than one atom. This is the intergalactic medium, a nearly invisible bridge between islands of matter. It is silent, ancient, and infused with secrets. The space between galaxies is not empty. It is the largest canvas the universe has, and it is from this backdrop that the most enigmatic structures emerge. Gigantic filaments stretch across billions of light-years, forming the cosmic web. These tendrils of dark matter and gas cradle galaxies like beads strung along invisible threads. Between them are voids immense, lightless expanses where galaxies are rare, and silence reigns. One such region, the Boötes Void, spans 300 million light-years and contains hardly anything. It is a hole in the sky, not just in space, but in expectation, and yet even these voids are not completely silent. Some harbor lone galaxies, rebels drifting far from any cluster. Others might contain warm, hot intergalactic medium, the so-called WIM, where missing baryons from the early universe may still hide. It is a cosmic scavenger hunt, tracing ancient elements to complete the inventory of matter. Our instruments refine and search, but the full picture eludes us. The universe, it seems, always withholds something. Then there are the great structures: the Sloan Great Wall, the Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall, the giant GRB ring. These behemoths stretch across scales so vast they challenge our assumptions of uniformity. If the cosmos is isotropic, appearing the same in all directions, how do such structures persist? Are they illusions of perspective, flukes of probability, or cracks in our cosmological model? This is not idle speculation. These structures test the Copernican principle, the idea that Earth holds no special place in the universe. If these colossal formations exist, they suggest a deeper underlying geometry. Perhaps the early universe had quantum ripples amplified by inflation, or perhaps dark matter flows shaped these behemoths like rivers cut canyons. Whatever the cause, their existence forces revision, and revision is the pulse of science. And what of time itself? In relativity, time is not an arrow but a dimension. Like space, it bends around gravity, slows near mass, and stretches across velocity, it can be warped, dilated, and even mathematically looped. Closed time-like curves appear in solutions to Einstein's field equations, suggesting that under exotic conditions, paths through space-time might return to their origin. These are not flights of fancy. They emerge from our best physical theories. Could the universe itself be cyclic? Some models suggest a cosmos that expands and contracts, like a breath. Others propose a bouncing universe, where each Big Bang is followed by a big crunch and a rebirth. In these models, time has no true beginning, only transitions. The singularity becomes a threshold, not a genesis. And yet, entropy complicates this view. The second law of thermodynamics tells us that disorder tends to increase. A bouncing universe would need a mechanism to reverse entropy, a cosmological reset button. Some physicists argue this is impossible. Others believe new physics might permit it. Quantum gravity, still embryonic, might one day reconcile these contradictions. The interplay of time, entropy, and expansion draws us toward the ultimate fate of the universe. Will it expand forever, thinning into heat death? Will it rip itself apart in a big rip, where even atoms are unbound? Or will it slow, reverse, and collapse into a new singularity? Each scenario is painted not in certainty, but in probabilities drawn from equations. And floating within these probabilities is us thinking, dreaming, speculating. The universe is not a machine ticking toward oblivion. It is a question mark written in energy. It asks us to interpret it, not merely measure it. Quantum mechanics amplifies this mystery. The act of observation alters the system. Particles exist in superposition, many states at once until measured. Entanglement links particles across space, so that a change in one instantaneously affects the other. Even across galaxies. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Today, we call it reality. But what does it mean to observe? Is consciousness required, or merely a measurement device? The answer is debated, not known. Some interpretations suggest parallel universes split with every quantum event. Others posit hidden variables or pilot waves. The landscape is speculative, beautiful, and frustratingly incomplete. Even time may not be fundamental. Some physicists propose that time emerges from entanglement, that the arrow of time arises from decoherence and observer memory. In this view, time is not the stage but the script. It is woven from correlation, not flow. As you rest, consider the possibility that your own mind echoes these cosmic processes. Memory, entropy, time, they all intertwine. You are not just in the universe, you are of it, shaped by its laws, puzzled by its contradictions, and carried forward by its questions. In sleep, your thoughts disperse like photons in vacuum, wandering, colliding, recombining, and somewhere in that drift, new understanding takes root. High above Earth's surface, where the atmosphere fades into vacuum, a silent aurora shimmers not from sunlight, but from particles spiraling along magnetic field lines. These ephemeral veils, visible from the poles, are not merely visual wonders. They are the visible breath of our planet's electromagnetic defenses. Earth's magnetic field deflects solar wind, forming a magnetosphere that shields life from harmful radiation. Without it, the DNA of every living thing would fray like cloth in a storm. This field is generated by Earth's molten iron core. As it churns, it creates a dynamo, a vast electromagnetic engine powered by heat left over from planetary formation and radioactive decay. But Earth's field is not stable. It drifts, warps, and occasionally flips. Magnetic pole reversals have occurred many times in geologic history. The last one, nearly 800,000 years ago, left no mark on fossils. Life adapted, as it always does. Yet questions linger. Is the core cooling? Could we one day lose the dynamo? Might Mars have suffered such a fate, once magnetic, now inert, with its atmosphere stripped by solar wind? The red planet is a cautionary tale etched in rust, a reminder that even planetary bodies evolve, and not always toward habitability. From planetary cores to biological signals, magnetism threads through life. Migratory birds navigate by geomagnetic cues. Some bacteria align their movement with magnetic fields. Even the human brain generates electromagnetic patterns, measurable waves of intention, memory, and sleep. To dream is to ripple space within your skull. Zooming out again, we return to the strange signal-bearing anomalies that linger at the fringes of science. Fast radio bursts. Millisecond pulses of radio waves erupt from deep space with enormous energy. Some repeat, most don't. They come from galaxies billions of light-years away, yet they're detected here, on Earth, by instruments attentive enough to catch whispers amid thunder. Theories abound: magnetars, black hole mergers, even advanced civilizations. No consensus, just the data, stark and mysterious. Another signal anomaly, the WOW signal of 1977. A strong, narrowband radio burst from the constellation Sagittarius that lasted 72 seconds and never repeated. Its origin remains unknown. Despite decades of monitoring, we have never heard its echo. It may have been a natural phenomenon, or an artificial beacon, or a singular cosmic accident. The signal's power was in its provocation. It reminded us how little we know. In the face of such uncertainty, science does not flinch, it recalibrates. The mystery becomes a vector for discovery. The lack of repeatability fuels scrutiny. New observatories like CHIME in Canada and FAST in China are scanning the skies with greater sensitivity and precision. Each year brings more data, but not necessarily more clarity. Ambiguity also defines the search for technosignatures, indicators of advanced extraterrestrial technologies. These might be radio bursts, laser flashes, or even megastructures. One star, KIC 8462852, popularly called Tabby's star, drew attention in 2015 for its strange, non-periodic dimming. Some speculated a Dyson sphere, a structure built to harvest stellar energy. More mundane explanations followed: dust clouds, comets, instrumental error. But the brief window of speculation reminded us that hypotheses can stretch far without snapping so long as evidence guides the journey. Scientific humility lives in this space where ideas meet data, and certainty yields to refinement. Our models evolve, our instruments improve, and in time, even today's enigmas may find context. This process mirrors evolution itself. Just as genes adapt through selection, so do theories through scrutiny. The fitness landscape of ideas is not shaped by popularity, but by predictive power. Theories that anticipate, explain, and unify tend to survive. Those that fragment or contradict fall away. Paradigm shifts are not revolutions, they are reconfigurations of the landscape. At every level, from mitochondria to galaxies, feedback shapes form. Stars that burn too quickly die young. Cells that mutate too wildly collapse into cancer. The universe appears tuned not for stasis, but for emergence. Stability exists in dynamic balance. Life, intelligence, culture, all are consequences of energy flowing through structure, and structure, in turn, modifies the flow. Even the anthropic principle that the universe must permit observers like us carries weight. Some physicists propose a multiverse, where countless bubble universes emerge from quantum fluctuations. Most are lifeless. A few, by chance, have the right physical constants for atoms, chemistry, and life. We inhabit one such bubble, not because it's special, but because it allows inquiry. But speculation must be bounded. While the multiverse may explain fine-tuning, it cannot be tested directly. It's a philosophical scaffold, not yet a scientific edifice. The danger lies in mistaking plausibility for proof. The challenge is to remain curious without becoming credulous. As you float now through the domain of thought, you are part of this unfolding process. Each neuron that fires, each synapse that strengthens during sleep, is a model being updated. Your mind is a theory of itself, fine-tuned by feedback, shaped by dreams. You are both observer and participant, measuring, predicting, imagining. And so the search continues, not just for aliens or answers, but for understanding. In the pattern of a burst, the orbit of a planet, the flicker of a thought, we glimpse the larger system. It is incomplete, yet intelligible, chaotic, yet patterned, silent, yet speaking. Let that silence accompany you now, as stars wheel overhead and magnetospheres hum below. The universe is not just observed, it is experienced, reinterpreted, and through you remembered. The final act of this journey begins not with the visible, but with the eerie silence that stretches across the great void. Space is not silent in the literal sense, for the electromagnetic whisperings of stars and quasars wash through it. But there's a deeper silence, the one that emerges from the absence of response. We send out signals, scatter them into the universe like messages in bottles on a cosmic tide. And yet, nothing calls back. Not with certainty. Not yet. It is as if the universe wears a veil, allowing us to witness its physical splendor, but withholding its sentient secrets. Imagine a civilization, thousands of light years away, that once thrived and wondered about us just as we wonder about them. Perhaps they, too, built great instruments, listening into the cosmic dark, only to conclude that they were alone. Or maybe, in the infinite potential of the universe, their form of communication gravitational, quantum entangled, or biological never intersected with our methods. Silence, then, becomes not proof of absence, but a limitation of perspective. It may even be a protective hush. As some propose, a galactic version of camouflage in the evolutionary arms race of intelligence. This paradox, the Fermi paradox, is not merely a curiosity, but a pivot upon which human self-conception turns. If we are alone, then we are impossibly rare obligated to guard and cherish this singular island of consciousness. If we are not alone, then the silence becomes a question. Why have we not seen the lights of other cities in the sky? One possibility grows more unsettling than the next. Civilizations may emerge often but extinguish themselves rapidly, burnt out by their own advancement. Or perhaps, there are galactic quarantines, ethical walls that advanced beings dare not cross. Some propose a great filter, an insurmountable barrier that halts nearly all life from reaching the stars. If it lies behind us, in the chemical birth of life or the leap to multicellularity, then our existence is a cosmic miracle. If it lies ahead in AI misalignment, ecological collapse, or something not yet imagined, then our future is not guaranteed. This question electrifies our search for exoplanets, biosignatures, and technosignatures. With each new candidate world, we ask, are we the rule or the exception? In another possible thread of cosmic understanding lies the theory of simulation. What if the universe itself is not what it appears to be? Some physicists entertain the notion that the fundamental properties of particles resemble computational limits. Like pixels on a screen, reality might have a resolution, a quantum granularity that is not merely physical but computational. If true, then the silence of the universe may reflect constraints within the simulation itself. Other civilizations might not be simulated or might be walled off to prevent us from detecting them. Whether simulation, isolation, or extinction, these are not just scientific speculations, they are ethical questions. If we are alone, how do we treat our only home? If we are not, how do we prepare ourselves to greet the other? Do we nurture a civilization worthy of being found, or one so careless it burns before the echo returns? Even as our instruments become more precise, radio telescopes scanning ever more frequencies, space probes peering deeper into interstellar darkness, we begin to look inward as well. What if the answer is not out there, but within consciousness? After all, remains one of the universe's strangest anomalies. Why should atoms, arranged just so, be able to question the stars? Some propose a panpsychic view, where consciousness is not emergent but fundamental, a property of the cosmos itself. In this view, the universe knows itself through us, and perhaps through countless others. This brings us, at last, to time. Time not as an axis of aging and decay, but as a vast medium in which meaning is woven. The stars we observe may have died billions of years ago, yet their light lives on. Perhaps the message is this, that in the universe, no act of creation is ever fully lost. That to build, to explore, to wonder, is to inscribe oneself upon the fabric of time. We may never know if we are the first, the last, or merely one among many, but we do know this. The silence of the cosmos is not empty. It is full of questions, waiting for minds brave enough to ask them, and dreams bold enough to echo into the void. And so, beneath the tapestry of stars, as your breath slows and your body yields to sleep, let the quiet of the universe embrace you. You are not merely drifting into rest, You are rejoining the story of the cosmos, a story written in hydrogen and memory, gravity and grace. Sleep well, traveler. The stars are listening.
The Voyager spacecraft did not make a sound when they passed through the heliopause. No alarms blared. No flash of light signaled the crossing. There was only the subtle shift in the behavior of charged particles and a faint tremble in the surrounding magnetic field. But what they entered was nothing less than myth made real interstellar space. What lies beyond our solar system is not simply more space. It is a new kind of existence, colder, darker, and vastly more ancient than the worlds we've come to know. From the flaming cauldron of the sun to the edge of its faint breath, the solar wind, we had understood space as something filled with planets, with motion, with warmth, with gravity. But past the heliopause lies a realm where our star's influence ends, and something else begins. A realm of undiluted silence. Yet silence is not emptiness. This region, though nearly a vacuum, is alive with motion on scales we cannot easily sense. Here, the interstellar medium, an almost intangible blend of atoms, ions, cosmic dust, and magnetic fields, dances in slow, epochal waves. Each atom travels for years before encountering another. Each dust grain has seen more star births and deaths than any human mind could count. You might imagine this space as nothingness, but it is stitched together by forces and particles we barely understand. It is in this very nothingness that our journey truly begins. The Voyager probes, now elder emissaries of Earth, continue to drift outward, their golden records, etched with symbols and songs of humanity, carry our first attempt to introduce ourselves to the void. They are not just instruments. They are artifacts, prayers launched into the dark. They move at nearly 17 kilometers per second. But even at that speed, they crawl across the gulf to the next star. It will take 70,000 years before either could come remotely close to Proxima Centauri, our nearest stellar neighbor. And yet, they go. Beyond the heliopause lies a place of myth and probability, the Oort cloud. It is not a cloud in any visual sense, but a spherical shell of icy remnants, a ghostly halo of comets and proto-worlds, perhaps trillions of them, orbiting our sun from such vast distances that one full revolution might take 1,000,000 years. We've never seen it directly. We infer its guidance from the long arcs of comets that fall toward the sun from the deep night. These are whispers from the edge, bearing witness to the solar system's primordial formation, and carrying the fingerprints of times before Earth even had oceans. If we could stand at the outer rim of the Oort cloud, the sun would be nothing more than a bright star, indistinguishable from its cousins. Here, the solar system ends, not with a wall, but with a gradient, a slow fading of influence into the galactic tide. This is where the solar system blurs into the interstellar medium, a zone that defies human intuition. It is not a place, but a process, a continual exchange between what belongs to a star and what belongs to the galaxy. The interstellar medium is not still. It is shaped by colossal events. Supernovae puncture its serenity with shock waves. Stellar winds from young suns carve out caverns and cavities. These collisions form superbubbles vast, irregular voids, where cosmic matter thins like mist in a canyon. And through these bubbles, high-energy cosmic rays scream across the dark, born in distant cataclysms and accelerated by magnetic chaos. Each one is a particle with a story, a messenger from across time and space. Sometimes this interstellar material finds us. The object called Oumuamua entered our solar system like a letter with no return address. It did not behave like any comet or asteroid we had seen. It accelerated slightly as it left the sun, spun like a tumbling shard, and glinted with puzzling reflectivity. Its shape, long and narrow, was more science fiction than astronomy. Was it a fragment of a shattered world? A derelict probe from another civilization? A shard of interstellar ice? We still do not know, and that uncertainty is part of its power. A few years later came Borisov, the first unequivocal interstellar comet. Unlike Oumuamua, Borisov behaved more familiarly, releasing gas and forming a tail, but its composition was subtly different, suggesting that even the most mundane comet from another star holds secrets unfamiliar to Earth. These wanderers are more than curiosities. They are cosmic introductions, the universe saying, "You are not alone in this complexity." As we drift outward in thought, we reach the Alpha Centauri system, 3 stars, one of which hosts a planet in its habitable zone. Proxima Centauri b, slightly larger than Earth, may hold liquid water. It is bathed not in our sun's light, but in the cool, red glow of a diminutive star. Days there may be eternally twilight. If there is life, it has evolved beneath a sky where the sun never sets. Most nearby stars are red dwarfs, quiet, dim, long-lived. They do not blaze like our sun. They simmer. They might offer the best chance for long-term habitability, but their flares, when they occur, are ferocious, potentially stripping planets of atmospheres. A delicate balance exists, one we have only begun to study. Within 20 light-years of Earth, over 60 stellar systems orbit in a slow cosmic waltz. Each carries its own family of planets, perhaps their own oceans and deserts, clouds and storms, questions and silences. Some planets may be locked in eternal day or night. Others may orbit 2 suns, casting dual shadows. Still others may lie beneath thick blankets of hydrogen or ice, shielding biospheres unlike anything we know. The sun, once our sole concern, is now a local participant in a much broader network. We are one note in a galactic symphony. And this music, this immense gravitational choreography, continues across tens of thousands of light years, leading us inexorably to the Milky Way's grand spiral. The broader context of all we are, we. But before we go there, we pause because even here, in interstellar space, in this realm of shadows and whispers, we are surrounded by a kind of memory. A memory written not in books or songs, but in the orbits of comets, the tremble of magnetic fields, and the silent drift of probes that left our world before most of us were born. This is where the solar system ends and where the galaxy begins. Somewhere between the comets of the Oort cloud and the faint tug of Proxima Centauri, we find ourselves no longer thinking about stars as destinations, but as inhabitants of something larger, a structure vast enough to contain billions of suns, yet intricate enough to give birth to complexity. We live inside a spiral. Not just a spiral of stars, but a spiral of time, gravity, and memory. The Milky Way. Our galaxy is a wheel of fire 100,000 light years across, slowly turning through the dark. It is not a solid disk. It is a living system, evolving, churning, continuously reshaping itself under the influence of unseen forces. At the core of this structure lies Sagittarius Aku, a supermassive black hole with a mass of 4 million suns. It does not devour the galaxy, as myths might suggest. Instead, it anchors it. Like a stone in a whirlpool, stars orbit it in dizzying speeds, whipped by its gravitational pull, creating one of the most energetic regions in the known universe. Near this core, time slows, space warps, and light bends. Yet from our quiet place in the Orion Arm, some 26,000 light years away, we see only the faint, milky glow of its distant signal. Our sun takes 225 million years to complete one orbit of the galactic center. Since its birth, it has circled the galaxy about 20 times. Each of these galactic years is long enough for mountains to rise and fall, species to appear and vanish, oceans to form and dry. Humanity has existed for only a fraction of one such orbit, a blink in cosmic time. But even this orbit is not smooth. It is shaped by the gravitational pull of neighboring stars, molecular clouds, and most mysteriously by dark matter. This invisible substance surrounds our galaxy in a vast halo, extending well beyond the edge of the visible disk. We cannot see it, but we can feel its pull. Without dark matter, the stars on the edge of the galaxy would fly apart. Its presence is the scaffolding on which the Milky Way is built. Embedded in the spiral arms are stellar nurseries, colossal clouds of hydrogen and dust, where gravity begins its quiet work. These clouds collapse under their own weight, fragment, and ignite. The result is stars, burning spheres of nuclear fusion, each born from chaos, each destined for a unique journey. And not all stars are born equal. Some are massive, living short, brilliant lives before dying in supernovae explosions, so powerful they outshine entire galaxies for a moment. Others are small, steady, and long-lived, like red dwarfs, simmering for trillions of years. Each star carries the chemical memory of the cloud that birthed it. And from that memory come the ingredients of life. In the spaces between the arms, stars drift like forgotten thoughts. These are the older populations, red giants, white dwarfs, the remains of generations that lived and died before Earth was formed. Some travel alone, others belong to ancient clusters, bound together for billions of years by mutual gravity. To stand beneath a dark sky and see the faint band of the Milky Way is to peer sideways through this galactic disk. What appears as a smear of starlight is, in fact, a corridor of depth, layer upon layer of history, extending thousands of light years in all directions. But we do not live in isolation. The Milky Way is not a solitary wanderer. It is one of many in a local cluster of galaxies, the local group held together not by proximity alone, but by gravity's slow insistence. The Andromeda Galaxy, our sister spiral, is the most massive member of this group. It lies 2.5 million light-years away, and it is moving toward us at a speed of 110 kilometers per second. In 4 billion years, the two galaxies will merge, and yet this collision will not be violent in the way we think. Stars are so far apart that very few will actually collide. Instead, their gravitational fields will twist and warp. Stars will be flung into new orbits, and the gas and dust within both galaxies will spark new waves of star formation. Over time, the chaos will settle into a new equilibrium. What remains will not be a spiral, but a vast elliptical galaxy, a silent monument to cosmic change. Already, the Milky Way is not pristine. It bears the scars of previous mergers. Streams of stars, remnants of smaller galaxies thread through the halo, invisible to the naked eye, but traceable by telescopes and simulation. These star streams are the fossil record of galactic evolution, showing us that our home is not static, but rather an ongoing act of assembly. And around the Milky Way, like satellites circling a planet, orbit dozens of smaller galaxies. The Magellanic Clouds, visible from the southern hemisphere, are among the brightest. These dwarf galaxies are not just companions, they are donors. They shed gas and stars into the Milky Way, slowly becoming part of it. The boundary between one galaxy and another is not a wall. It is a flow, a negotiation of gravity and time. The farther we look, the more interconnected everything becomes. Between the stars, the interstellar medium continues its silent work. Dust grains, formed in the atmospheres of dying stars, seed the birth of new planets. Magnetic fields twist through the gas, shaping its motion. Supernovae shockwaves compress clouds and initiate new cycles of formation. The galaxy breathes not in hours or days, but in epochs, and we tiny creatures on a pale blue dot are part of this breath. Every atom in your body was once inside a star. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen you breathe, all forged in stellar cores and scattered across the galaxy in death. You are a galactic heir, a child of thermonuclear fire and cosmic dust, a thinking structure of star stuff, capable of turning inward and asking why. in mapping our galaxy, in measuring its arms and tracing its center. We are not just cataloging stars. We are recovering our origin story, not just of where we live, but of how life itself came to be. The Milky Way is not our backdrop. It is our birthplace, Mom. And yet, it is only the beginning. As we continue outward, we encounter the local group as a whole. 50 galaxies, vast in diversity, bound together in a slow dance that will take billions of years to play out. This is not just a galactic family. It is a prelude to something larger, a thread in the cosmic web whose vastness dwarfs even our spiral's grandeur. The night sky, viewed from Earth, seems calm. Stars twinkle with quiet dignity, and the Milky Way draws a faint, glowing band across the darkness. But if you could step back far, far back, you would see something profoundly different. A tangled web of matter, stretched across the cosmos, like a neural network of a sleeping giant. This is the universe, as it truly is, not random, not empty, but organized by the silent hand of gravity. We call it the cosmic web. At the heart of this structure are superclusters, immense groupings of galaxies, strung together into filaments that span hundreds of millions of light years. The Milky Way, along with the Andromeda Galaxy and their companions, resides in a cluster of galaxies known as the local group. But even that is just one node in a larger filament, the Virgo supercluster, which itself is part of something even grander, a gravitational basin we call Laniakea. Laniakea, meaning immeasurable heaven in Hawaiian, is not a formal boundary, but a flow. It encompasses over 100,000 galaxies, spanning 500 million light years, all moving along cosmic rivers toward a common attractor, a region of deep gravitational pull, unseen but felt across the sky. We do not orbit this center. We are being drawn toward it, along with thousands of other galaxies, like leaves drifting in a current whose source remains mysterious. Galaxies, in these superstructures, are not stationary islands. They move swirling, falling, threading, all within invisible scaffolding woven by dark matter, the unseen architecture that holds the visible universe in place. Though we cannot observe dark matter directly, its gravitational imprint is undeniable. Without it, these colossal structures would not exist. The luminous matter, stars, gas, and dust is merely the glowing tip of an enormous invisible iceberg. If you imagine the universe as a sponge, the galaxies are concentrated along the thin filaments, the threads, while the vast voids in between are mostly empty. These voids, often hundreds of millions of light years across, are some of the largest and loneliest regions known. They are not truly empty, but the density of matter is so low that a galaxy might wander for eons without encountering another. These voids form the spaces between the strands of the web, just as rivers form the boundaries between continents. And yet, even in these barren expanses, physics remains elegant. In the emptiest places, The expansion of the universe is most pristine, unimpeded by the gravity of nearby galaxies. There, the Hubble flow, the cosmic stretching of space continues unchallenged, offering a glimpse into the raw expansion that defines our cosmos. The great filaments are the arteries of cosmic structure. They carry gas, dust, and galaxies, the raw material of creation, toward the dense nodes where galaxy clusters form. These clusters are enormous, containing thousands of galaxies, vast reservoirs of hot gas, and central elliptical behemoths, often the cannibalistic remains of smaller galaxies merged together. Among the largest of these is the Virgo cluster, located 65 million light-years away. It contains over 1,500 galaxies, and its gravity governs the motion of many surrounding systems, including our own local group. It acts as a regional capital in the cosmic hierarchy, not by power, but by mass and pull. The Virgo cluster is the dominant feature of the local universe, and it draws us toward it silently, constantly. But even the Virgo cluster is just one part of the Laniakea supercluster. And Laniakea is itself woven into something still more immense, a network of superclusters that stretches to the edges of the observable universe. These threads are not evenly spaced. Some are thin, others thick. Some bend, others cross. And in the regions where multiple filaments meet, gravity compacts the material into walls, immense planar structures that rival anything we've seen. The largest known of these is the Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall, a structure spanning over 10 billion light-years. If you could see it, it would appear as a vast wave of galaxies, frozen in place by cosmic expansion. Its sheer scale challenges our understanding of the universe's early growth. The existence of such massive formations has led some cosmologists to wonder whether our theories of inflation and dark energy require revision. To map these structures, astronomers conduct redshift surveys measuring how the light from distant galaxies is stretched by cosmic expansion. The Sloan Digital Sky Survey and its successors have mapped the positions of millions of galaxies, creating a 3D model of the universe that is both beautiful and humbling. In these maps, galaxies appear not as points, but as brushstrokes in a larger composition. The universe is not chaotic, it is patterned. And this pattern did not emerge randomly. It was seeded in the earliest moments after the Big Bang in quantum fluctuations. Tiny irregularities in the density of energy that were inflated to cosmic scales during the first fraction of a second. These irregularities acted as gravitational wells. Over billions of years, matter fell into them, forming stars, galaxies, clusters, and finally, the web we see today. This process, the transition from quantum jitter to galactic symmetry, is one of the most awe-inspiring transformations in all of science. It is as if the universe translated uncertainty into form, probability into architecture. The cosmic web, in many ways, mirrors our own neural networks. Both are systems of nodes and connections, shaped by interaction, memory, and flow. Some have even speculated half seriously half in metaphor that the universe resembles a kind of consciousness, or at least that its large-scale structure shares traits with cognition. While this remains philosophical, it points to a deeper truth that pattern and connection emerge naturally in systems governed by feedback and growth. What, then, does it mean to live inside such a structure? It means that we are not adrift in an indifferent expanse. We are bound not just by gravity, but by context. Every atom in your body, every cell, every breath, owes its structure to the shape of this web. Your existence is not an accident. It is a product of cosmic organization, born in a place where matter gathered, where stars ignited, and where chemistry was allowed to become biology. As we move farther from Earth, farther from our own galaxy, we do not leave behind the story of life. We expand it. The stars are not decorations. They are witnesses. And the cosmic web is not just a structure of matter, but of meaning, an archive of the universe's own self-organization. Eventually, we will reach the edge, not of the universe itself, but of what we can observe, a horizon beyond which light has not yet had time to arrive. But before that, we must pass through the veil of the cosmic microwave background, the fossil light of creation. There, at the edge of visibility, lies a record of everything that came before, and perhaps hints of what lies beyond. From the great walls of galaxies to the luminous filaments stretched across billions of light years, we ascend one final step toward the ultimate limit, the edge of observation itself. Here, the light we receive is not from stars or galaxies, but from the very fabric of the early universe. It is the faint, uniform glow of the cosmic microwave background, a ghostly whisper from 13.8 billion years ago, when the universe first became transparent. At that moment, roughly 380,000 years after the Big Bang, the hot plasma that had filled space cooled just enough for protons and electrons to combine into neutral atoms. Photons, previously trapped in a dense fog of charged particles, were finally free to travel. That light has been moving ever since, stretched by the expansion of space into the cold microwave radiation we detect today. It arrives to us from every direction, carrying within it the imprint of primordial structure. Tiny temperature fluctuations in this ancient light, just a few millionths of a degree, tell us volumes. They map the seeds of galaxies and superclusters. They reveal the initial conditions of our cosmos, and they speak of a profound, nearly perfect symmetry, broken just enough to give rise to all we see. Yet, even these ancient photons do not reach infinitely back. Before that light, there was darkness, not metaphorical, but literal, a period we call the Cosmic Dark Ages. For hundreds of millions of years after the Big Bang, there were no stars, no galaxies, no light at all, only a cooling, expanding ocean of hydrogen and helium. This was a time of silence in the cosmic story, a prelude to the first flare of starlight. Then came the cosmic dawn. As gravity drew the primordial gases together, the first stars ignited. Their radiation began to ionize the hydrogen fog, carving luminous bubbles into the darkness. Galaxies began to form. Black holes awakened. And the structure of the modern universe was set in motion. These first lights are among the faintest, most distant objects we can observe, and yet they mark the turning point from potential to form. But beyond even this ancient frontier lies a deeper mystery. What happened before? To understand this, cosmologists turn to a revolutionary theory: cosmic inflation. According to this idea, the universe underwent an exponential expansion during the first tiny fraction of a second after its birth. During this inflationary epoch, space itself expanded faster than the speed of light, not in violation of relativity, but because relativity places no limit on the expansion of space itself. Inflation stretched quantum fluctuations, microscopic jitters in the vacuum to macroscopic scales, planting the seeds of galaxies and voids. It smoothed the universe, explaining its large-scale uniformity. And it carried regions that were once in contact beyond each other's horizons, solving the so-called horizon problem, the question of how distant regions of space look so similar despite having never exchanged information. Inflation is more than a mathematical fix. It is a window into the earliest possible time, a moment when the universe, governed by strange fields and perhaps higher dimensions, unfolded its very architecture. But inflation, as profound as it is, raises a new possibility. What if it never truly ended? In the theory of eternal inflation, some regions of the universe stop inflating and form bubble universes like ours, while other regions continue to expand. This process, eternal into the future and potentially the past, creates a fractal landscape of countless universes, the multiverse. In this model, our observable universe is just one bubble in a much larger, perhaps infinite, ocean. Other bubbles may have different physical constants, different numbers of dimensions, even entirely different laws of physics. Some might harbor life, others may be sterile or collapse moments after birth. We exist in a region where the conditions permit complexity, not by cosmic design, but by statistical inevitability. This idea, while difficult to test directly, has explanatory power. It offers a natural solution to the fine-tuning problem, the observation that the constants of physics seem perfectly balanced. To allow life in a multiverse, it is not surprising to find ourselves in a universe where life is possible. It would be more surprising to find ourselves anywhere else. Yet, not all multiverse models arise from inflation. Quantum mechanics, too, suggests plurality. In the many worlds interpretation, every quantum event branches into multiple outcomes, each realized in its own parallel world. Every decision, every fluctuation, every subatomic collision creates new paths, infinitely diverging timelines, some eerily close to ours, others wildly alien. And string theory, our most ambitious attempt at unifying physics, predicts a landscape of possible universes, each with its own configuration of extra dimensions and vacuum states. These models envision a meta-space, or bulk, where brains, multidimensional universes float like sheets in a cosmic wind, occasionally colliding or interacting. Could these other universes ever touch ours? Some theorists speculate that if our bubble universe once collided with another, it might have left a scar in the cosmic microwave background, a circular anomaly. A cooler or hotter spot where the collision disturbed the infant cosmos. Searches for such imprints continue, but so far, no definitive signal has been found. Yet, even in the absence of evidence is revealing. It sharpens our theories. It draws boundaries around what we can know and reminds us of what we cannot. Still, the idea that the universe might be infinite in extent and not just in space, but in possibility, evokes an ancient longing. To ask what lies beyond the stars is also to ask what lies within us. For we are made of the same stuff, born of the same burst of energy, governed by the same laws, and shaped by the same expansion that carried galaxies apart. When we contemplate the multiverse, we do not escape the laws of physics. We expand them. We test their scope. We ask whether the patterns we observe atoms, molecules, stars, minds are unique or commonplace, universal or contingent. And in that asking, we find something deeply human, the refusal to accept a final horizon, the urge to step beyond the visible, the known, the safe. Beyond the galaxies, beyond the filaments of dark matter, beyond even the most speculative realms of the multiverse, the universe begins to curve inward, not in space, but in understanding. Here, we no longer ask where or what, but why and how long. The most enigmatic entities that nature has revealed are not stars or planets, but voids within them, black holes. When a massive star ends its life, its own weight crushes it inward. No pressure resists. The collapse continues until all matter is compressed to an infinitely dense point, a singularity hidden behind an invisible veil known as the event horizon. Inside this horizon, not even light escapes. Causality unravels. Space and time trade roles. The future, for anything that falls in, ends at the singularity. And yet, this region may not be an end at all, but a tunnel. Wormholes, mathematical bridges through space-time, emerge as theoretical solutions to Einstein's equations. They suggest that black holes might connect to other regions of the universe, or to other universes altogether. Could a black hole be a cosmic seed, the beginning of something new? Some speculative models propose that each black hole might birth a new universe, pinched off from its parent. The singularity becomes a bounce. The horizon becomes a womb. If true, our universe might itself be the interior of a black hole formed in another cosmos. Yet, despite their mysteries, black holes are not eternal. In 1974, Stephen Hawking showed that black holes radiate. Through quantum processes near the event horizon, pairs of virtual particles are separated. One falls in, the other escapes. This Hawking radiation slowly drains the black hole's mass. Over incomprehensible timescales, trillions of years, even the largest black holes will evaporate, leaving behind only fading heat. But this leads to a paradox. What happens to the information about the matter that fell in quantum mechanics insists that information is never destroyed? Yet, if the radiation is featureless and the black hole vanishes, the story seems lost. One proposed resolution is the holographic principle. The idea that all the information inside a region is encoded on its boundary, like a three-dimensional object projected onto a two-dimensional surface. Reality may be a hologram. Our universe could be such a projection, its deep laws playing out not within, but at its edges. If true, this insight redefines the very nature of space and time. It bridges gravity and quantum mechanics, the two great frameworks of physics that, until now, have resisted unification. Their conflict becomes most intense in the Planck regime distances on the order of 10^35 meters, energies near 10^19 GeV, where quantum effects of space-time itself must be reckoned with. Here, smooth geometry shatters, space-time foams. Singularities may dissolve into loops or vibrating strings. String theory. One proposed unifier replaces point particles with one-dimensional strings. Their different vibrational modes give rise to the zoo of particles we observe. But for string theory to work, it requires extra dimensions, 6 or 7, beyond the familiar 3 tightly curled or hidden. These dimensions might harbor other universes, separated from us, not by distance, but by orientation in higher dimensional space. Other approaches, like loop quantum gravity, suggest that space and time themselves are quantized, composed of discrete units, like the pixels of a screen. If space-time is granular, it might avoid the infinities of classical theories. Singularities might be smoothed. Time itself might become emergent, not a fundamental flow, but a relational quality that arises from deeper order. As we look ahead, one question looms. What will become of time? 3 major fates confront the universe. In the Big Crunch, gravity wins. If the universe contains enough matter, expansion halts and reverses. Galaxies collapse inward. Temperatures rise. Time ends where it began in fire. In the Big Freeze, dark energy prevails. The universe expands forever. Stars die. New stars cease to form. Black holes evaporate. Eventually, only radiation remains, scattered across an ever-thinning vacuum. The cosmos becomes a cold, dark whisper of its former self. No structure, no memory, just entropy. In the Big Rip, the most dramatic scenario, dark energy grows stronger. Eventually, it overcomes all forces, ripping apart galaxies, stars, planets, even atoms. Space itself tears. Time ceases, not in heat or cold, but in disintegration. And yet, there are more speculative ends. In the Big Bounce, collapse is halted by quantum effects. A new expansion begins. The universe cycles eternally, each cosmos born from the ashes of the last. Others imagine false vacuum decay, where a sudden shift in the vacuum energy creates a new reality, rewriting the laws of physics at light speed, erasing everything before it. But endings are also beginnings. To ask about the fate of the universe is to confront the boundary of our theories and the limits of our perception. It forces us to ask what time is, what being means, and whether the universe is a story with a final page or a poem that loops. Perhaps the most haunting possibility is that we will never know, that the universe's fate will unfold on timescales so vast that no consciousness can witness them, that the last thought, the last photon, the last motion will pass unnoticed. And yet, the fact that we can ask, that we can map billions of light years, hear the echo of the Big Bang, simulate quantum foam and multiverses, is itself a miracle. The mind, born of dust, reflects on the stars and writes their history in language and light. So when you look up tonight, let the stars remind you, you are not at the center of the universe, but you are central to the universe becoming known. That is what lies beyond, not a place, not even a theory, but the widening horizon of understanding.
What if I told you that you are not walking toward the future? What if everything you think you know about time is just an illusion? Because maybe we are not moving within time. Maybe time is moving within us, and worse, maybe the future is not ahead of us, but above us, pulling us in without us even realizing it. Today, we'll explore an idea that could shatter your perception of reality. What if time isn't moving forward, but pulling us in, from modern physics theories to forgotten concepts of circular time? Get ready to see the universe and your own existence in a completely different way. We often think of time as a line, a straight line extending from the past to the future, always moving forward. However, modern physics is dismantling this linear perception of time. With Einstein's theory of general relativity, it was revealed that time can bend and curve along with space, and that even things like mass can slow down time. This suggests that time is not a surface, but an active field. If time is a gravitational field, we are not moving within it. We are being pulled by it. Just as gravity pulls us toward Earth, time may be pulling us toward the future. In this case, moving forward is not an action, but an inevitable drift. The future is not a destination, but a center, and we are caught in its pull. This perspective also challenges concepts such as free will and destiny. Perhaps we are not making choices, but merely drifting in certain directions within this time field. Wherever time pulls us, we move in that direction. This completely overturns the belief that we control the direction of our lives. Understanding time as a gravitational field implies that even our physical existence is shaped by this field. Perhaps even our bodies are designed according to this flow. Our memories remain in the past because gravity pushes us forward. Even our thoughts may be shaped by the slope of this time field. When we think of time as a gravitational field, the idea of the future being a fixed point makes more sense. The future is not a possibility, but a certainty. We are consciousnesses tilted toward this fixed point, like stones rolling down a mountain. we are accelerating toward that fixed point. If the future is truly fixed, this shows that what we are experiencing right now is merely a process of becoming. We are not creating time as we think we are. We are merely beings shaped by it. The future may behave like the ultimate core of our existence. The direction of time is also determined by this fixed point. This idea takes the concept of fate to a whole new level. Perhaps fate is not a written script, but the magnetic pull of a fixed target. Our entire lives are shaped by the influence of this target. In that case, our lives may be shaped not only by the past, but also by the shadow of the future. According to this theory, our memories do not take us back to the past. They only show us how far we are from the future. Although our memory seems to work backward, it actually measures our distance from the future. If the future is a fixed point, then we are always falling toward it without even realizing it. The idea that time moves forward is based on an assumption that we cannot directly observe. In reality, there's no such thing as the flow of time. What exists is only our own change. Our cells change, our thoughts change, events change, and we interpret this change as progress. If time were static, the entire universe could be frozen in a single now. What we call the past is merely a record of changes we remember. The future is simply changes we have not yet observed. We are constantly changing, and we perceive this as time passing. This perspective teaches us to internalize time rather than externalize it. Time is not a flow outside of us. It is a transformation within us. The more we change, the more time feels like it has passed. That's why some moments fly by like hours while others stretch out like years. This brings a whole new perspective to the idea of freedom. If we create time, then we also determine the future. But we do this not by moving forward, but by changing. Every awareness, every new thought does not move time forward. It makes it deeper. Could what appears to us as the present moment actually be an echo of a future that has already occurred? Perhaps now is filled with vibrations coming not from the past, but from the future. Though this idea may seem fun at first, it aligns with the dual nature of time discussed by quantum physicists. In some experiments, the future state of a particle can influence its past behavior. This provides clues that time may not only move forward, but also backward. If this quantum effect holds true at the macro level, the moment we are experiencing may be shaped by echoes from the future. This could explain certain things that come to us, or our intuitive feelings about the future that seem to arise without cause. Perhaps time is not a straight arrow, but operates like intertwined rings. In each ring, there are forward and backward ripples, and we call these ripples moments. If the present is an echo, then the future is the original source of the sound. We are merely hearing the sound as it bounces off walls and returns to us. In this case, real time is not now, but later, and we exist only in its echo. As Einstein demonstrated, time slows down as we approach the speed of light. At the speed of light, time stops altogether. This shows that time is not absolute, but relative to speed and mass. In this case, are we free within this variable time, or are we subject to its rules? If time itself bends, how much control do we have? Our bodies, thoughts, and entire lifespans flow through this curved timeline. Perhaps we don't make as many choices as we think, because all choices are already shaped within this curved timeline. The flexibility of time also draws a new framework for the concept of destiny. Perhaps we are not creating the future, but merely following the most suitable path within this curved time. The curvature of time may be determining our direction. In this case, freedom is not external, but an internal potential. Even where time is bent, our thoughts can change direction in small leaps. But to a large extent, we must accept that we are beings pulled toward the future and that we live within that pull. We spend our lives believing that we are constantly making choices. But perhaps all these choices are nothing more than an illusion. What if the future is not a place to be reached through choice, but an inevitability that draws us to itself independently of us? In this case, our decisions may be nothing more than steps along that inevitable path. If the future is fixed, every event, every encounter, and every thought exists to bring us closer to that point. In this case, will is not a route, but merely a guide used during the journey. Everything we think we choose may actually be an adaptation to a point we have already been drawn to. The most striking aspect of this inevitability is that it begins to influence us from birth. Our thoughts, preferences, and even our emotional responses may be reflections shaped by an invisible force that carries us into the future. It is as if a magnet has already begun to pull us toward itself, and we still think we are walking. This idea can be frightening, but it can also be comforting because if the future is inevitable, the pressure to do everything perfectly disappears. Life becomes less about struggling and more about becoming aware of the pull and flowing with it. We are accustomed to thinking of time as something external, something we move within. But perhaps the truth is the opposite. Time comes before us and creates us. We may be temporary forms emerging from its structure. Time is not consciousness. Consciousness follows time. In this case, our entire personality, even what we call I, is defined by the form it takes within time. Just as a wave in a river depends on the shape of the water, we are shaped by how we pass through time. We could have been different people in a different time. When we realize that time shapes us, we understand that we have less control over life than we thought. We are not choosers, we are merely shaped. This awareness allows us to understand ourselves within a larger structure. When we accept that we are not the architects of time, but rather its results, resisting the flow of life becomes more meaningful. Perhaps true freedom is not about controlling time, but about observing and accepting how it shapes us. If time is not linear, but spiral, the same events can repeat themselves in different forms. In this case, life progresses in a cyclical manner. While we think we are moving forward, we are actually bending back toward the same center again and again. This may explain the feeling of the strangeness of time. Being in a spiral also describes the transformation of the past into the future. Sometimes we encounter the same person again under different circumstances and feel the same emotions. This is not a coincidence, but a result of the nature of time. Each turn brings us a little closer to the same center. This perspective also answers the question, why do we keep repeating certain lessons? Perhaps the spiral keeps turning us until we learn. Time is not only progressive, but also transformative. Transformation is not just repetition, it also means deepening. The spiral model of time also includes individual development. We experience the same things in each cycle, but we are a little more aware, a little stronger. This shows that time does not just take us somewhere, it also builds us while building something inside us. Although this expression may seem like a play on words, it contains a profound philosophical difference. When we say time is passing, we think of time as something independent of us, something that flows. But what is actually happening is that we are moving within time. We are passing. Time may be standing still. If we think of time as a space, we are beings moving within that space. Every moment, we are in a different part of time. That's why sometimes time passes quickly, sometimes slowly. In fact, this difference is not in time itself, but in how we move within that space. This understanding makes us more conscious. Instead of racing against time, we question how we travel within it. Time may not control us. We determine our lives by how we navigate within it. We should pay attention to the architecture of time rather than its pressure. When we think about it this way, it's like we're touching different parts of a fixed space every day, just like someone walking in a forest. The forest is fixed. We're moving forward. Then losing time or gaining time is only about where we're walking, not about time itself. During moments of déjà vu, we experience the feeling of, I've been here before, but we can't quite remember where or when. What if the cause of this feeling isn't the past, but the future? Could we be sensing these moments not from the past, but from a time that hasn't yet happened? Our brain processes not only memories, but also possibilities. According to quantum consciousness theories, our mind can sometimes experience multiple possibilities at the same time. This could lead to the feeling of déjà vu. Perhaps this feeling is a brief preview of a future moment. The idea that déjà vu could be connected to the future supports the notion that time is not linear. When we think of time as a structure, a system, information about the future might leak through certain cracks. Our minds sometimes perceive these leaks without us being aware of them. This suggests an invisible connection between consciousness and time. Déjà vu may not just be a neurological glitch. It could be a small vibration indicating that the future is pulling us toward itself. Perhaps the first echoes of the future are already resonating within us, even if we don't notice them. We are accustomed to thinking of time as merely a physical process. But what if the future we refer to has a conscious, guiding, and influential structure? In other words, what if we are not moving toward the future, but rather it is slowly molding us into the form it desires? In this case, the future is not merely the end of time, but a will. The idea of a conscious future may seem fantastical at first. However, just as a flower turns toward the sun, we can observe that human behavior is also directed toward the future. Goals, dreams, fears, all of these could be the shaping influence of the future. Perhaps the future is bending and shaping the present to reach us. This perspective affects not only individual destiny, but also collective human history. Even though we seem to have no idea where humanity is headed, we are actually moving in a certain direction. What triggers that direction may be the pull of the future rather than the push of the past. If the future is truly conscious, then we are its instruments, perhaps even its messengers. Every person can be a small part of the process of building this conscious future. If we are part of a system larger than we imagine, then the future is not just a point in time, but a reflection of a universal mind. Although time appears to flow forward, we notice that many events repeat themselves and that similar feelings and situations appear cyclically in our lives. This cyclical nature suggests that time is not linear, but spiral. In other words, time is not only moving forward, but also turning. The idea of spiral time is meaningful for both individual and collective history. Humanity repeatedly experiences similar wars, crises, victories, and discoveries. However, these repetitions do not occur at the same point. With each turn, we pass slightly higher or lower. Thus, everything that repeats is actually a new variation. This model also explains personal development. Someone who says, "I always encounter the same problem," may actually be progressing within spiral time. Encountering the same theme again does not mean they are in the same place. It means they are experiencing that theme on a different level. Each turn is a possibility for awareness. The spiral concept of time also supports the idea that time has no beginning or end. Perhaps nothing ever ends. It just revolves around the same center at different levels. The future may be the innermost circle of spiral time. What draws us there is the intensity of the center. Saying that time flows leads us to imagine it as a flowing river. Yet in reality, time may be static. We are beings passing through its layers. Just as we turn the pages of a book, we move through the sections of time. In this case, it is not time that moves, but us. From this perspective, time can be understood as a space. We walk within it, sometimes speeding up, sometimes slowing down. This is why the relativity of time makes sense. Time that passes quickly is our speed within it. Time that slows down is the slowing of our movement. This awareness reduces the pressure we feel about time, because we realize that it is not passing us by, but that we are moving within it, consciously or unconsciously. Instead of saying, "There wasn't enough time," it would be more accurate to say, "I didn't move forward consciously enough within it." Realizing that we are passing through time shows that every moment is a place. It is possible to stop within that moment, to live it, and to change our direction. In other words, destiny is not just being in the flow, but being aware of the flow. Time deepens when it is lived consciously. Sometimes things we have never experienced feel familiar. We feel a sense of peace in places we have never been, and a sense of closeness to people we have never met. Could this sense of familiarity be information leaking in from the future rather than the past? Perhaps some moments leave an impression on us before they are even experienced. This feeling can be explained by the non-linear nature of time. If time is interconnected like rings or a web, certain future events may influence our present selves. The sense of familiarity could be the first point of contact in that connection. The shadow of the future falls upon the present. Furthermore, consciousness may not be limited to remembering the past. Vibrations or tendencies toward the future may be perceived in our subconscious. These signals, which we cannot comprehend, sometimes manifest as déjà vu, sometimes as premonitions, and sometimes as a sense of familiarity. This feeling may be a sign that life is pulling us somewhere. Every familiar person or moment is a mental projection of an event we will experience in the future. Perhaps it is the quietest but most effective form of calls from the future familiarity. Are dreams merely the product of the subconscious? Or are they information that seeps into the present from moments when time is bent? Sometimes we see images in our dreams of events we have not yet experienced, people we have not yet met, or places we do not know. Is this coincidence? Or is it a clue about the structure of time? The mind operates at different frequencies while asleep. This may allow us to access certain information that is inaccessible to our traditional consciousness. Perhaps this state enables us to touch the finer layers of time. In that case, dreams could be a natural window into the future, even if some dreams are not experienced in their entirety. They can still evoke similar emotions or situations. This suggests that the future may seep into the present not only through events, but also through its emotional undercurrent. Dreams may be information coming not from the direction of time, but from its intensity. Seeing the future is not the same as feeling it. This may be what happens in dreams. Perhaps the mind, influenced by the pull of time, sensitively perceives certain events in advance. Dreams are not merely psychological releases. They may be the echoes of the future resonating in the echo chamber of time. Stepping outside of time seems to most people like a purely physical or science fiction concept. But what if time is not just a physical phenomenon? If consciousness can operate outside of time, then our awareness could transcend clocks and calendars. This would mean we are not confined to the moment. In some mystical experiences, it has been reported that the perception of time completely disappears during meditation or deep trance. People do not feel the past or the future at that moment. They simply exist. This is a hint of a form of consciousness that transcends time. Perhaps consciousness is not born into time, but only temporarily enters it. Being outside of time means being able to look at events from a different perspective. This state can reduce the burden of life, because a consciousness freed from the pressure of time makes decisions with clarity and integrity rather than fear or haste. This may be true freedom. If a state of consciousness that can step outside of time is truly possible, then the purpose of life is not merely to pass by. It is to transcend time. Such a state could open the door to the idea that consciousness can continue after death. In other words, consciousness is not a light that falls into time. It is an illumination that transcends it. In our familiar way of thinking, we remember the past and predict the future. But what if the truth is the exact opposite? What if the past is only an echo and the future is the real force calling us to itself? Perhaps the past is only a backward-looking echo, while the real force that determines our direction is the call of the future. Many people act on a strong instinct without knowing what to do at certain moments in their lives. That instinct often comes not from the past, but from the call of the future. What is felt at that moment is not a memory, but a kind of guidance. These are moments when the future is trying to shape us, even if unconsciously. Living in the past means not hearing the call because what happened in the past is fixed. It cannot be changed. But the future has not yet happened, so it can communicate with us. Its call sometimes comes to us as an inner voice, sometimes as a coincidence, sometimes as a dream. And these calls transform us. Remembering the past defines us, but being called by the future changes us. True transformation is experienced not with the past, but with the future. Because while the past only tells us where we came from, the future whispers where it wants to take us. The assumption that our memory belongs only to the past is also being questioned scientifically. Perhaps our brain stores all time-related data, but we can only consciously remember what pertains to the past. What about the future? What if we remember it too, but we don't notice it because those moments haven't happened yet? Some intuitions, premonitions, and the unexplainable feeling of, "I knew that," support this idea. Perhaps our subconscious processes future data, but cannot bring it to the conscious level. That's why when certain events occur, we say, "I felt that coming," because we truly remembered it. This situation shows that time has a multi-dimensional structure, just like saving a file on a computer and then opening it later. Some fragments of time may be stored in our minds, but are not yet visible. Some parts of the future may be dormant in our mental memory. This idea shows that the human mind is connected not only to the past, but also to the future. If the future is something that can be remembered, then it is clear that life does not progress in a linear fashion. In that case, consciousness is not just a memory space that carries the past, but also the future. Instead of just talking about theories about the future, could there be a real, tangible aspect to it? Some people claim to have experienced this through concepts like premonition or intuition. If these sensations are real, then the future is not a passive time frame, but an active field of interaction. With this idea, the future is no longer an abstract possibility, but a tangible space. Perhaps the mind can connect with this space when it operates at certain frequencies. In that case, Intuition becomes a tool for understanding the future, a form of perception that operates not with knowledge, but with feeling. This is also very valuable philosophically, because when we realize that not everything we feel comes from the past, we understand that life flows within a much broader time frame. If the future is constructed by consciousness, it is also possible for it to make contact with us. If the future can be felt, this makes us a different kind of human being. A mind that is not bound to the past, but oriented toward the future, capable of relating to what has not yet happened. The evolution of this mind is based on understanding time rather than living it. The idea that the universe is a living structure has influenced many people, from ancient philosophers to modern scientists. If the universe is an organism, then time could be its pulse. Every moment is a cycle of the universe, like a heartbeat. We exist within those beats. This metaphor explains why time sometimes seems to pass quickly and sometimes slowly. Perhaps time is not a river, but a rhythm, just like tempo in music. Major events in the universe accelerate or slow down this tempo. This, in turn, affects our perception of time. This perspective takes time out of being merely a measuring tool. It turns it into a rhythm that we can listen to and feel. To understand time, we need to harmonize with it, not calculate it. The pulse of the universe also guides our internal rhythm. If time is truly a pulse, then we are formed a little more with each beat. If every second is thought of as a moment in the life of the universe, then our existence becomes a consciousness that beats with it. In other words, time does not pass. The universe lives. At the quantum level, time can work in reverse. Quantum physics offers examples that overturn the classical understanding of time when examining the smallest building blocks of the universe. In particular, delayed choice experiments show that the past state of a particle is determined by its future measurement preference. In other words, time may be bidirectional at the microscopic level. The past and future influence each other simultaneously. This striking situation opens the door to the idea that time is not just a river flowing forward. Perhaps time is not a river. It is a multidimensional energy field. Within this field, the past and future may be sending signals to each other without our awareness. We, however, can only perceive one direction from the past to the future. The reversal of time at the quantum level also reinforces the idea that what we call choice is predetermined. Perhaps some of our decisions are formed by information sent back from future outcomes. Time may not just be carrying us along. Our future may be shaping our present moments. If we accept this idea, time ceases to be a process of remembering and waiting. Our minds may be as connected to the future as they are to the past. Intuition, premonitions, and unexplainable feelings could be echoes of time's dual nature within us. Perhaps consciousness is a bridge vibrating between these two directions. How do we know that time is passing? The most honest answer to this question is through memory. Our records of the past accumulate. Events are arranged chronologically in our minds, and we call this time passing. But what if nothing is actually passing? What if we only feel that time is moving forward because our records are increasing? From this perspective, time is not a process flowing outside of us, but an impression that accumulates within us. The essence of experiencing time lies in creating memories. That's why some days fly by, while others seem to never end. It's not time that changes, but the intensity of the memories associated with that day. As our memory grows, past emotions and events deepen. This creates what we perceive as the length of time. We cannot know whether time actually passes, but we can feel that it accumulates. Therefore, it is not time itself that is real. It is the things we remember that are real. Being aware of this adds a different dimension to our lives. Every moment is not just a second. It is a building block that will determine the length of time in the future. The length of our lives is not so much about how many days we have lived, but how many memories we have accumulated. Time is measured by memories, not by clocks. A plan is a mental design that a person makes for the future. But a program is an order that works within us from an external system. If the future does not work as we planned, but rather as if it were already written in a program, then we may be part of that structure. The future is then not something that is created, but something that is implemented. This idea opens up the question of individual will. Perhaps we are not as free as we think. The turning points in our lives are not determined by our decisions, but by the natural flow of that program. We are left with only the freedom to act in accordance with that program. Not choice, but scenario. The idea of a program also aligns with the concept of a universal order. Every part of the universe operates according to specific mathematical rules. Perhaps the functioning of time itself is programmed within these rules. In that case, the future could be not something imagined, but a code systematically in motion. Although this perspective may seem frightening, it brings a sense of surrender because there is no longer a need to strive for control. What matters is understanding where we are in the program and moving forward in harmony with it. Perhaps we need to learn to read the future rather than write it. We often imagine time as a path, a surface we walk on, leave behind, and move forward. But what if time is not a path? Perhaps it is a hook that pulls us from where we are and drags us towards somewhere else. If the future is the tip of that hook, then we are being dragged toward it. This metaphor suggests that time is not a passive ground, but an active force. We are not moving forward. Time is pulling us. Just as a fish cannot escape once it is hooked, we are caught in the pull of time the moment we experience it. The future pulls us in before we can reach it. This idea gives rise to the notion that time is not a direction, but a force. Perhaps time is not an energy that carries us, but an energy that calls us. Every passing second means that this energy is pulling us further. That is why time feels faster as we age. The pull grows stronger. If we accept that time works like a hook, then living is no longer walking, but being dragged along. In this dragging, it is not how much resistance we show that matters, but how conscious we are. Because being hooked is destiny, but seeing the direction of the hook is awareness. Stopping time is one of humanity's ancient dreams. Yet perhaps the issue is not to stop it, but to recognize its direction. Slowing down or stopping time without knowing where it is flowing is meaningless. The real question is, where is time taking us? Most people imagine time as horizontal, not vertical. However, time can bend in different directions for each individual. Some are stuck in the past, some flow toward the future, and some spin around in the present moment. Without knowing the direction of time, it is impossible to understand our place within it. With this perspective, a map of time can be drawn. If we look not at the sequence of events in our lives, but at their direction, we can see that a direction is actually forming. This direction sometimes points to decline, sometimes to rise, and sometimes to stagnation. Time is not flat. It is a vector experience. The way to manage time is not to cut it off, but to listen to it. Every second whispers a direction to us. We cannot stop time, but we can be aware of which direction we are moving in. This awareness gives rise to a more valuable level of consciousness than simply using time, seeing time. The concept of time travel is often imagined as a conscious transition made with a vehicle. But what if the future is not a destination, but a structure that pulls us in like a pit? Then we don't go to the future, we fall into it. This difference completely changes our relationship with time. The idea of falling into the future requires accepting that control lies not with us, but with time. Perhaps we do not decide and go in a certain direction. Instead, we fall into moments when the future calls us, opens up, and pulls us in. This fall can sometimes be a moment of decision, sometimes a coincidence, and sometimes an inevitable crisis. This perspective suggests that time is not a passive mechanism, but an active field. Like gravity, time pulls us towards certain areas of intensity. The turning points we experience in our lives may be moments when we fall into these time pits. There's no way back from there, only transformation. This awareness teaches us not to fight against time, but to understand its dimensions. The future is not a map, but a magnetic field. As we approach it, it is impossible not to fall into it. What matters is not managing these falls, but understanding the message they carry. People often see the future as an idea or a dream. But perhaps the future is not just about the mind. Perhaps the future, like north or south, represents an existing direction. In this case, the future is not a question of what will happen, but where are we going? Thinking of the future as a direction implies that time is not just content, but also a framework. Like an arrow, it pushes us in that direction at every moment. Whether we are aware of it or not, every thought and every action we take is shaped by this direction. The future is therefore not just an intention, but a slope. With this idea, our life journey becomes a map. The future is like a direction with a clear route, but an uncertain landscape. Even if we don't know where we are going, the direction is determined by the angle at which we are moving. Just like a flower turning toward the sun, we live unconsciously facing the future. If the future is a direction, then to change it, we must change our direction, not the content. What determines the future is not what we want, but where we look. The direction of our eyes, the direction of our hearts, the direction of our thoughts, each determines the angle of the future. Does time always move forward? Or can it change direction under certain conditions, if this is possible? Then what we call the past is not fixed, but a structure that can be rewritten. In this case, the direction of time affects not only the future, but also the past. In physics, entropy is one of the fundamental criteria that determines the direction of time. However, even entropy can work backward in some systems. This shows that the direction of time is not a universal constant. Perhaps time changes direction according to the conditions we find ourselves in. If the direction of time changes, our view of history also changes. The past can be shaped not by remembering, but by reimagining. Memory, in this case, becomes a tool dependent not on the flow of time, but on its direction. And sometimes, when a direction changes, we may feel as if our past has changed as well. If the direction of time is not singular, then history is not absolute. In that case, everything we experience is merely one version. A different flow of time creates a different history. Perhaps alternative timelines are flowing in different directions at the same time. We are simply aware of one of them. We are accustomed to seeing time as a fixed structure and consciousness as light moving within it. But what if it is the opposite? What if what we call time actually originates from consciousness? In that case, the future is not a period to be experienced. It is a state of consciousness that will come into being. The flow of consciousness constantly changes direction. intensifies, sometimes expands, sometimes contracts. This movement directly affects our perception of time. Perhaps we are not moving forward in time. Time is born as consciousness flows. In this case, the future is a new layer that our level of consciousness has reached. This perspective makes time a more individual and internal phenomenon. Each person's time is different because the flow of consciousness is different. The same event may seem endless to one person and pass in an instant to another. The length of time depends on the intensity of consciousness. If the future is the result of the flow of consciousness, then destiny is not passive either. As we think, feel, and become aware, new layers of time open up. The future is not a route, but a depth. The deeper consciousness becomes, the more multidimensional time becomes. The idea that all life forms, all beings, are drawn to a common point of attraction is found in both ancient teachings and modern science. If time is an energy field, and the future is at its most intense center, consciousness may naturally be drawn to this center. This center is not a single moment. It could be a focal point. Like a black hole, it may draw all timelines into itself. We are beings shaped by the pull of this center. Our thoughts, choices, and transformations are all oriented toward that center. This idea makes individual life part of a universal journey. The future is not just what will happen to me. It is a great center of formation that we are all collectively drawn to. Universal consciousness is moving toward this center, and we are moving forward as part of it. This understanding can carry both destiny and freedom, because even though everyone is drawn to the same center, how we reach it may be up to us. The future calls us all, but how we respond depends on our level of consciousness. We always rely on external tools to measure time clocks, calendars, stopwatches. However, time is also related to how it works within us. The fact that the same minute can pass like a lifetime for some and like the blink of an eye for others shows that the true measure of time is internal. Moments of awareness are experienced more intensely, which makes time feel longer. Moments spent without awareness are like lost time. Even if hours pass, they leave no mental trace. This difference is not just a subjective perception, but also a neurological reality. The more attention our mind gives to a situation and the more emotionally connected we are to it, the more detailed our memory of those moments becomes. This creates the sensation that time has stretched. Conversely, in monotony or an automated lifestyle, the brain does not make new recordings, and time seems to pass quickly. In other words, it is possible to intensify time through awareness. This way of thinking emphasizes the idea of actively living time rather than passively spending it. Time is not a consumable object, but a space for experience. It is not hours, but levels of awareness that determine the quality of time. This is why certain moments in life are unforgettable, because awareness was at its highest level in those moments. To expand time, we need not a new day, but a new awareness. In this case, time is not just an external reality. It is a phenomenon shaped by consciousness. We often think that we determine the future. If this happens, I will be like that. If I do this, I will reach that point. But what if the future is already shaping us? What if what determines who we are is not our past, but the future we are moving toward? This idea introduces a radical difference in the way time works. The past starts us, but the future may complete us. Just as a painter looks at a blank canvas and directs his brushstrokes according to the future painting, we too may be making decisions unconsciously in response to the call of the future. Perhaps the purpose we feel is the unconscious influence of that future. The flow of life sometimes arises not only from memories, but also from the shaping influence of what has not yet happened. The future is not just a direction, it is a shaper. From this perspective, the question of who we are as individuals is answered not only by what we have experienced in the past, but also by the possibilities of the future that we are drawn to. In other words, an unlived future may be the invisible architect of our present identity. Perhaps some aspects of ourselves are shaped by situations we have not yet encountered. This lends weight to the idea that time can have a backward effect, not just a forward one. This awareness takes personal development to a whole new level, because transformation is no longer just about repairing the past, but about shaping the future. Who we are is revealed not so much by the traces of the past, but by our responses to the call of the future. In that case, the future is not a direction, but a mold, and we are constantly being redefined by its influence spreading within us. We generally think of time as a linear path. It has a beginning and an end. We move forward along it. However, the idea that time can function like an organism offers a much deeper and more dynamic structure. Perhaps time is something that lives, has a pulse, responds, grows, and shrinks. In this case, we are not beings moving within it, but beings growing with it. Just as different parts of an organism have different functions, time may have regions of different intensity. Sometimes time seems to speed up, sometimes it slows down. These differences are not just psychological. They may stem from the variability inherent in the nature of time itself. In other words, time is not a straight path, but a constantly changing structure within a living system. When we think of time as an organism, moments are no longer isolated points. Each moment influences the next and is part of a system. This wholeness connects the past and the future rather than separating them. One cell can receive a signal from the past, while another cell can prepare for a future response. We are like cells in the time organism. We are sensitive, influential, and susceptible to influence. This approach transforms time from a consumable resource into a living entity to be understood. The sense of time is no longer tied to clocks. It is based on feeling the internal rhythm of the organism. Living in harmony with time is not about trying to conquer it. It is about participating in its breathing. Perhaps the most balanced life is one that aligns with the rhythm of the time organism. Aging alongside time seems like an accepted reality. But perhaps aging is not so much a result of time flowing as it is of being drawn toward its center. We may age not because we are getting closer to the center of the future with each passing year, but because we are becoming more compressed under the gravitational pull of time. In this case, age is not progress, it is contraction. If time is an energy field, then as we approach the center, this field becomes more intense. Just as matter approaching the center of a black hole distorts our perception of time, we too may be changing shape under the gravitational pull of time. As we age, this contraction is not only physical, but also mental and spiritual. Life contracts because time intensifies. This is why time feels expansive in childhood. Life appears long, and we are farther from the center, and the gravitational pull is weaker. But as we age, time compresses, and the same days feel shorter and more intertwined. This compression is not merely an external effect. It is time itself penetrating us more deeply. Time is not moving forward. We are being drawn into it. This is why we age. This awareness changes our view of age. Aging is no longer wear and tear. It is approaching the center. And if this approach is conscious, it can be experienced as an intensification rather than a contraction. Every great mind that has tried to figure out how the universe works has faced time at some point, because time isn't just a detail flowing within existence. It's the key to how it works. If the universe has a conscious or systematic side, it shows itself most clearly through time. So understanding time is like understanding what the universe wants to do. The forward flow of time is based on the principle of development and transformation. Everything changes. Nothing remains the same. This is not only a physical, but also a philosophical orientation. Perhaps the purpose of the universe is not just to exist, but to be in the process of becoming. Time is the language and tool of this process. To decipher it is to sense the direction of the universe. If time is not a goal, but a tool, its functioning reveals the universe's intention. The evolutionary development of human history, the harmonious cycles in nature, and the cosmic order all come into being with time. Understanding the structure of time is understanding where the universe wants to take us. Time is not just physics. It can be a direction, a will. When viewed with this awareness, time is no longer just something to be measured. It becomes a presence to be sensed. If the universe has a purpose, time is its steps. As long as we are aware of these steps, we do not just live life, we give it meaning. Solving time is the natural quest of the human mind that seeks to uncover its secrets. For centuries, philosophers, scientists, and mystics have tried to understand the nature of time. But perhaps time is not a mystery to be solved. It is a rhythm to be felt and harmonized with. Just like a melody in music, time may contain an inner harmony. And the point is not to understand it mathematically, but to achieve spiritual balance. The most painful way of existing in time is to resist it. People who fight against time are constantly rushing, constantly late, or stuck in the past. This leads to mental conflict and spiritual exhaustion. However, for those who live in harmony with time, time neither flows quickly nor slowly because they have balanced the rhythm of time with their inner rhythm. This is not just a lifestyle. It is a state of consciousness. Harmony is not passive acceptance. On the contrary, it is listening to the inner flow of time with deep awareness and moving with it. Every person's internal clock is different. And when this internal understanding of time conflicts with external time, stress arises. However, when a person lives according to their own internal clock, they do not need to make an effort to control time because harmony, not control, is the foundation of a healthy relationship with time. Perhaps time is neither good nor bad. It simply is. Listening to it instead of racing against it means living life deeply rather than just passing through it. Time is often perceived as a continuous and uninterrupted flow. However, the idea that time may contain gaps, cracks, or fractures at both the physical and metaphysical levels is gaining increasing attention. In this case, the question arises, if time is not continuous, who falls into those gaps? What happens to what falls? Lost memories, unexplained events, or the feeling of, where did the day go, may be signs of disruptions within time. These gaps may be mental or spiritual spaces into which we fall. Sometimes we suddenly feel disconnected, as if we have been thrown out of time. We do not belong to the present, the past, or the future. Perhaps those moments are points where the seams of time come undone, and we remain suspended there for a while. What we call spiritual emptiness is actually a rupture within time. Who falls into these voids? Perhaps it is only those whose minds are overloaded, who push time too hard. Perhaps thinking too much wears away time, and part of the mind seeps in through the worn places. That is why we sometimes have trouble remembering things or feel as if we have never lived a day. Memory gaps may parallel gaps in time. If time is a fabric, these gaps are its worn-out places. Recognizing the gaps in time is not just scientific curiosity. It is a profound dimension of being human. Because every person experiences moments in their life when they fall outside of time, a loss, a shock, a moment of awakening. When we think about the direction of time, we usually imagine it as a line, a plane extending from the past to the future. However, some theories claim that time does not flow in this way, or even that it is not linear. Perhaps time is not moving forward. It is bending inward, collapsing into itself. In this case, we are not moving forward in time, but simply deepening. Time thus gains depth rather than direction. The idea of time bending inward can be understood on both a physical and a mental level. When time ceases to be a dimension and becomes a volume, each moment curls inward toward the previous one. This takes the concept of living in the moment to a whole new level because we are not moving forward on a timeline outside ourselves. We are experiencing an inward intensification. This explains why time feels heavier with each passing year. In this model, the future is not a destination outside ourselves. It is a center growing within us. We are not walking toward it. Its weight is pulling us toward it. That is why life seems to speed up as it progresses, because we are no longer just aging. We are approaching the inner circles of time. Just as we experience compression as we move toward the center of a spiral structure, time may be pulling toward its own inner center. If time is bending inward, then the meaning of life is not external progress, but internal depth. We're not traveling toward the end of life, but toward its center. There is an important concept in quantum physics, the observer effect. A system can change the moment it is observed, and even the outcome can be determined by observation. This may affect not only the behavior of particles, but perhaps even the direction of time. Perhaps the direction in which time flows depends on who observes it and how. In other words, time is not absolute. It is a process that takes shape according to the observer. This idea opens the door to the notion that time is not a constant, but a field of possibilities. If an observer looks into time with a certain expectation, time may take shape according to that expectation. For example, for an observer looking with hope, time may move toward renewal, while for someone looking with anxiety, time may take shape toward decline. This explains the subjective nature of expressions such as "time is passing badly" or "how quickly time has passed." If the observer influences the direction of time, then our relationship with time also has creative power. We do not just live time, we produce it, direct it, and even change its intensity. Therefore, perspective is not just a psychological state. It becomes a tool with physical effects. The observer is not just a viewer, but a being that touches the inner structure of time. We generally think of the future as a goal. It stands somewhere far away, and we walk toward it. But perhaps the future is not a place. It is a radiance, a wave. We are shaped at the point where that light touches us. In this case, the future is not an external goal. It is a source that seeps into us, and we become ourselves at the point where this light intensifies. That is, in the now. This perspective turns everything we know about time upside down. The past no longer pushes us forward. The future pulls us toward itself. And the future reaches us before we reach it. Just as the light from a star reaches us first, the future may send its information, emotions, or direction to the present. We find our direction, make decisions, and change through contact with that light. The fact that the future behaves like light supports the idea that it is a form of energy, like light. Time spreads rapidly but remains invisible if it is not perceived. This light that seeps into us can sometimes be an intuition, sometimes an idea, sometimes just an inexplicable sense of direction. But it is always there and determines our direction. We move forward on the path that light opens up without even realizing it. Throughout history, humanity has dreamed of stopping time. Desires such as, if only we could turn back time, or if only we could freeze this moment, are fueled by the desire to control the flow of time. However, time cannot be stopped. Perhaps the real issue is not to stop it, but to see where it is flowing. Time may be a more directional and conscious flow than it appears, and we are only measuring it, not reading it. Seeing the direction of time is directly related to understanding the course of life. In our daily lives, we sometimes move forward, sometimes backward, and sometimes stand still. This does not mean that time is not flowing. It means that our relationship with it has changed direction. Life does not gain meaning by moving forward, but by the direction we lean toward in time. At some moments, the past calls us. At others, the future, and at others, the present holds us back. If we can truly learn to see time, there is no need to stop it in order to shape the future. The direction of time is a flow that is sometimes invisible, but can be perceived through feeling. Clues about the course of life are shaped by the direction time shows us. Recognizing this direction directly affects not only our personal decisions, but also our spiritual balance. We have thousands of memories, records, and evidence of the past. That is why the past seems more real. The future, on the other hand, remains abstract because it is an area that has not yet been experienced or touched. But what if this appearance is deceptive? What if the past is just a reflection and the future is the real focus of life? Perhaps the real truth lies there, and we are just living in its shadow. The future sometimes guides our lives with an idea, sometimes with an intuition, and sometimes with an impulse from our subconscious. The past, on the other hand, is only remembered, but its influence gradually weakens. Even though we live mentally in the past, we are constantly drawn to the future, both physically and spiritually, because every new moment brings us one step closer to it. In this sense, the future is not just a possibility, it is a center of reality. Moreover, the past cannot be changed, but our perception of the future can. This makes it a more dynamic reality. The fact that the future has not yet been experienced does not mean that it is ineffective. On the contrary, the greatest transformations are determined by our orientation toward the future. When an individual wants to change themselves, they refer to the future, not the past, because the potential of the future is much stronger than the fixity of the past. People who race against time actually accept its rules. Statements such as, "I must catch up before it's too late," and "I must succeed before I grow old," are based on the idea that time has absolute power over us. Although this race may appear to be an effort to become stronger, deep down, it is complete surrender to time's control. This is because we forget that everything we race against controls us. Racing against time brings not only a physical pace, but also psychological pressure. The desire for continuity, goals, and an obsession with success are all products of this race. However, instead of resisting the flow of time, moving with it is much more productive because time does not stop. No matter how fast we run, it is always ahead of us. Therefore, racing brings not victory, but exhaustion. If we want to overcome time, we must first make peace with it. Making peace begins with accepting it as it is. This is not inaction. It is conscious action. Instead of trying to keep up with the speed of time, existing alongside it allows life to flow more smoothly and healthily. This takes us from the stress of the race to the comfort of freedom. Simulation theory has become an increasingly debated way of thinking today. If the reality we live in is a simulation, then time is a module belonging to the software of this system. In this case, time is not an external physical reality. It becomes an interface, a construct, a building block. We do not experience time. We process life through time. According to this perspective, everything works like a pre-written algorithm. Time is necessary for the flow of this system. The sequence of events, the continuity of consciousness, and causality can only be simulated through time. In other words, time is software running in the background without us being aware of it. Just as there is a day-night cycle in a game, time serves the same function in the universe we live in. Simulation theory is not just science fiction. It is also a philosophical framework that questions existence. According to this theory, time itself is not real. It is an order created to create reality. This gives rise to the idea that time is not absolute, but flexible and manipulable. Perhaps dreams, intuitions, hours that pass suddenly. And the vagueness of memories are small errors in this software. From this perspective, we may not be consciousnesses moving within time, but rather parts of a system organized by time. In that case, freedom is not possible by transcending time, but by recognizing the nature of the simulation. Sometimes a scent, a melody, or an image can instantly transport us back years. This is not merely a mental recollection. It is as if a window that had fallen outside of time has reopened. Memories, in this sense, are not merely records of the past, but exceptional particles that have seeped into the structure of time. They belong not to the flow of time, but to its broken points. This is why some memories are very clear, while others are vague. Perhaps our minds can only reach the fragments that spill out of certain areas of time. Memories are not fixed. They may be echoes suspended in the voids of time. When we remember them, we are not actually touching the past, but the outside of time. This is why the feeling called nostalgia is not just remembering. It is a longing for something beyond time. If memories transcend time, this allows them to shape the present. A memory can change the course of our lives even years later, because that memory does not exist within time. It resides in the layers of consciousness beyond it. This also explains why memories are sometimes so real, vivid, and touching. They are not products of time, but of awareness. In this case, human memory is not a recording device. It is like an antenna with an organic connection to time. An event occurs, and we make sense of it in some way. But as time passes, our perspective on that event, the meaning we assign to it, and our feelings about it change. This may not just be due to us. It could also stem from time itself rewriting that event. Perhaps time is constantly looking back and reshaping the past. The past is not fixed. It is a sea that ripples with the flow of time. If time is not unidirectional, then its effect on the past is also possible. In this case, even past events are not completely finished. Each new level of consciousness sends a different energy to a memory from the past, and this energy changes the structure of that memory. That is why we feel the same event very differently in different periods, because that event has changed. It has been rewritten by time. This understanding takes traumas, regrets, joys, and victories to another dimension, because their impact is not only in the moment they occur, but also in how they are rewritten in subsequent times. This is not about working with time, but collaborating with it, because something that happened in the past can transform into something else through today's perception. That is why time is not a fixed book. It is a living, writing, erasing, and rewriting system. Physical time is divided into three parts: past, present, and future. But if time is a kind of field of information, this division may be misleading. Perhaps the past is still happening. The future has already begun. And the present is the point where these two fields intersect. In that case, time is not something that happens in sequence. It is layers that exist simultaneously. In this model, time functions like a field. Different events exist simultaneously within it. How we move within this field depends on the frequency we are at. That is why we sometimes remember the past as if it were today, and sometimes have startling intuitions about the future. They are all different regions of the same field. Only our position changes. If time is such a field of information, then living in the moment means shifting to the frequency that is most in tune with that field. In that case, instead of fighting with the past or fearing the future, we must learn to navigate this field of information with awareness. Everything may still be happening. We simply decide from which angle to perceive it. This idea transforms all our desire to control time, because what matters is no longer determining the direction of time, but reaching the right frequency within it. Scientists say that the universe is constantly expanding. However, this expansion may not be limited to space. Perhaps it is time itself that is expanding. As the universe grows, the dimensions of time may also expand, producing more future. In this case, the boundaries of the universe are also the boundaries of time. From this perspective, time is not static. It is an expanding entity. Every second may be expanding not only physical space, but also temporal potential. This could be an answer to the question of why the future seems infinite, because the future is the new moments produced by time as space expands. Such a thought explains why life feels like an endless quest. The future always exists because time is constantly opening up new spaces. While the past is fixed, the future is fluid. And every new moment is born with the universe expanding a little more. We are also part of this expansion. As consciousness, we also expand with time. If this is true, then time is not merely a vehicle carrying us forward. It is a living entity that evolves alongside us. And the expansion of time, like everything else in the universe, is imperceptible. But its effect is inevitable. Some of the decisions you make right now have no logical explanation. A voice inside you, a sense of direction. An impulse pulls you in that direction. Perhaps this voice is the echo of your future self. The person you have not yet met is shaping who you are today. This may be proof that time is not linear, but an intertwined structure. This approach changes the concept of I, because we are no longer just a product of the past. Our future selves may also have a say in our decisions today. This means that intuitive knowledge can be more powerful than rational explanations. The sense of direction that comes from within us is actually the call of our future selves. If this is true, then goals are not just planned, they are called. Sometimes when you question why you have to live certain things, you may be drawn to experiences that your future self needs. In that case, time is not just a process of the past. It is also a process in which the future takes initiative. This awareness gives a different meaning to the concept of destiny. Destiny is shaped not only by external conditions, but also by an inner time traveler who guides us. And on this journey, our deepest guide is the us we have not yet encountered. Sometimes we are overcome by a feeling we cannot explain. I feel like it will be like this, we say. There is no logical data, but the feeling is real. Perhaps these intuitions are small leaks of the future whispering to the present. We must think of time not as a completely impermeable curtain, but as a structure that leaks in places and comes into contact with consciousness. These intuitions are not merely individual emotions. They are frequencies from other moments trapped within time. Just as the light from a distant star reaches us, a distant future can reach our souls. We often mistake this vibration for imagination, anxiety, or inspiration. Yet perhaps intuition is simply the future announcing its own existence. This understanding changes a lot when combined with conscious awareness, because listening to intuition is not just instinctive. It is tracing the traces of a temporal interaction. And the way time works in this way shows that destiny is not unchangeable, but readable. Intuition is the first step in reading that text. Perhaps time does not speak to us loudly. It speaks through our intuition. Hearing it is more than taking a step toward the future. It is hearing time not as a line, but as a song. And whoever hears that melody will reach the language of the future first. Perceiving time as past, present, and future may stem from our mental limitations. Perhaps all time is hidden within a single moment. That moment is both infinite and invisible. What deceives us is our lack of attention to perceive that single moment. This idea keeps popping up in some mystical teachings and scientific speculations. What we think of as now is not just a transition. It could be the essence of all time. The layers of the past and future overlap in this single moment, and we only navigate the surface. But if we can delve deeper into that moment, we can reach the entirety of time. Becoming aware of this single moment begins with ceasing to race against time, because only in that moment is there complete consciousness. Our minds generally live either in the past or in the future, but our hearts always beat in the present moment. Perhaps time is something perceived by the heart, not the mind. That is why the past and future are merely imaginings of that single moment. From this perspective, time is not an infinite line. It is a single point that can open up infinitely. All memories, dreams, and possibilities spread out from that point. And we do not live when we become aware of it. We live when we truly are in that single moment. The idea that the entire universe possesses consciousness is increasingly accepted by quantum physicists and mystical traditions. If time is a fundamental component of the universe, why shouldn't it have its own consciousness? Perhaps time is not just flowing, it is perceiving us, shaping itself according to us. Although this idea may seem abstract at first, some aspects of everyday life support it. At certain moments, we feel as if time is expanding or contracting with us. Time sometimes cooperates with us, sometimes constricts us. This is not just an internal perception. It suggests that time may be a field of consciousness that responds to our mental state. If time has consciousness, this does not make it manageable. It transforms it into a structure with which we can establish a relationship, rather than seeing it as an enemy or a coercive force. We need to develop a mind that converses with it and establishes harmony. Time perhaps flows with those who understand it and hardens with those who resist it. Understanding the consciousness of time adds another layer of depth to every aspect of life. It is no longer about the clock, it is about rhythm. It is no longer about duration, it is about proximity. And time experienced with this consciousness becomes not just a passing process, but one that leaves a mark. A large part of the universe is silent, dark, and invisible. In contrast, the human mind is constantly filled with an inner voice, a crowd of thoughts. Perhaps this inner noise is the point at which time takes us captive. And the silence of the universe exists to balance this noise, because time may only exist when it is audible. When our minds are silent, time slows down. In moments of meditation, when we are at one with nature, we say that time has stopped. But it has not stopped. It has simply lost its voice. A mind free of noise senses not the presence of time, but its absence. This leads us to believe that time does not just flow, but also speaks. The silence of the universe is an antidote to this sound of time. Cosmic voids, intergalactic distances, places where even light cannot reach, all of these may not exist to prevent time from passing, but to suppress its internal rhythm. And when we listen to that silence, we perceive time more deeply. Therefore, to understand time, we must not speak but remain silent. To reduce noise, silence thoughts, stop those internal clocks. To hear time, we must first reach the universal silence beneath its sound. We usually associate time with movement. The world turns, seasons pass, we grow older. But the real indicator of time is not movement, but transformation, because some things never change, even after a long time, while others change completely in an instant. This shows that time is not measured by quantity, but by content. A 1-minute encounter can be worth a lifetime. A 10-year routine may not be as transformative as a single word. This tells us that time is not an objective thing. It is shaped by the depth of our experiences. Time gains meaning not through numbers, but through the rate of transformation it contains. This idea is an approach that changes how we manage life. Instead of calendars and clocks, transformation and awareness become the focus. The question, how much have you changed, becomes the true measure. And this is a way of thinking that deepens time rather than speeding it up. It is impossible to control time, but when we realize its relationship with transformation, we can elevate every moment we live to another level. Because time does not exist by how much it has passed, but by how much it has changed. If we think of life as a movie, time is the flow of that movie. But perhaps we are not experiencing the entire flow. We are stuck in a single frame, a single scene. Our consciousness does not see the whole movie. It only replays that moment over and over again. And our sense of time comes from that repetition. According to this idea, many of the repetitions we experience, even some fate-like events, may be caused by being stuck in the same frame, the same relationship cycles, the same mistakes, the same inner conflicts. All of them may indicate that time is not flowing, but that we are replaying the frame we are stuck in over and over again. Then, liberation isn't waiting for time to flow. It's learning to step out of that frame. That means expanding awareness, breaking mental fixations, and shifting to a new perspective. If the film is playing but we don't notice, there's no change. But when the frame changes, time starts flowing again. Realizing that time works like a film frees us from the illusion of repetition. If we wake up in the same scene every day, perhaps it is not time that has stopped but us. The film continues, but we do not notice because we are standing still. At the center of everything, there may be a core where time itself is born. Just as time is zero at the point of a black hole, there may be a center in our lives where time first begins. This center is not our birth. It is the moment we first come into contact with consciousness, the moment we first become aware of ourselves. This core of time may be connected to the center of every choice we make throughout our lives. We always want to return there. Perhaps nostalgia is the subconscious longing for this core. The moments that always feel most real are experienced near this center, because time is more intense there. This core is also the source of time. All possibilities emanate from it. When we become aware of it, we begin to understand time, not control it, because everything returns to it. Every decision serves it. The path of life is not straight. It may be a spiral toward that center. Understanding time begins with recognizing this core. Those who hear its voice understand the direction of time. Because the beginning is not only in the past, it is a heart of time still beating within us. Developing wisdom, changing perspectives, increasing awareness, all of these change our view of the past. Perhaps this change is not only psychological, it is an intervention in time itself. A future level of consciousness can truly rebuild the past. This suggests that time is not linear, but circular. An understanding we develop in the future can erase the effects of traumas we experienced in the past. Then the past no longer exists in its old form, but as transformed content. Even memory changes, even emotions. In this case, the direction of time may be variable because the past is not a fixed record, but a constantly redefined content. And this content can be shaped by the wisdom we attain in the future. The future us can influence the past us. This explains the relationship between forgiveness, understanding, and acceptance and time. It shows that time is not unidirectional and that even time itself softens when viewed with love. Perhaps time does not carry the past. It rewrites it with the light of the future. We often imagine time as a path, a corridor. But perhaps it is a labyrinth. Every decision, every choice leads us to another room. And in those rooms, different realities, different outcomes are hidden. In this case, time is not linear. It is multidimensional and infinite in direction. Finding one's way in this labyrinth is not easy, because every now may hide a door, a word, a step, a thought. All of them can take us into another temporal room, and we live without realizing it. Perhaps the feeling of déjà vu stems from these sudden leaps between rooms. If time is a labyrinth, then every choice is not destiny. It determines our route. We can reach the same end by different paths. But which rooms we will stay in longer, which passages we will pass through, is up to us. Time here is not just a structure, it becomes the environment. Thinking of time in this way turns life into a discovery rather than a direction. If everything is certain, time becomes uninteresting. But if everything is possible, time becomes interesting. And those who are in this labyrinth do not pass through time. They experience it. When we think about the accuracy of history and personal memory, we realize that the past is not an absolute reality. How we remember an event is how the past is for us. Everything that is not in our memory is as if it never existed for us. This shows that the past is not fixed, but a structure shaped by perception. Two people can describe the same event differently because everyone sees it from their own perspective. This shows that the past is not objective. It is shaped entirely by a subjective universe. The past is not only what happened, it is what is remembered. Therefore, even a reality that happened in the past fades away if it is not remembered. This idea also questions our dependence on the past, because if the past is only what we remember, then all we need to change it is our memory, our interpretation, and our feelings. It is not time that can be changed. It is the past that can be recreated. Perhaps the past is the most fragile state of time. It changes when we touch it. And this gives us the opportunity not to escape the past, but to transform it. Thinking about time in this way gives us the power to shape the future more freely. Everything seems to be bound by time. But what if there is a realm outside of all this experience of time? There is no time there because there is no change, no movement, no waiting. There is only being. This realm is the pure state of consciousness. And in some mystical experiences or accounts of the afterlife, this state of timelessness is described. Timelessness is not emptiness. It is density. Everything happens at once. Nothing passes. Thoughts do not come, but consciousness does not disappear. This beyond of time is not the universe. It is the original state of existence. And perhaps time is only the outer layer of this space. The experience of time is the shell of timelessness. Realizing the existence of this realm deepens life as much as it deepens the understanding of death. Because those who feel timelessness are not slaves to time. They know the rhythm of life, but do not panic. They sense that everything happens at the right time because there is a balance outside of time. Perhaps true peace is approaching that timeless state. And when we observe time instead of fighting it, the door to that realm opens. When we are in a crowd, time seems to pass more quickly. But when we are alone, time almost stands still. Perhaps this is not a fundamental characteristic of time, but rather a dimension that interacts with sociality. Loneliness is a lens that lengthens time, while meaningful relationships shrink it. This is why an hour spent alone can feel like a day spent in a crowd. When our minds are engaged in social interaction, they divide time into segments. Conversation, distractions, and shared activities make time flow smoothly. However, when we are alone, all attention turns inward. As introspection deepens, time slows down. Perhaps time reveals its true face, not when we are with others, but when we are alone with ourselves. This may indicate that time is only fully perceived during moments of solitude because crowds obscure time. Solitude reveals it. Everything experienced in solitude becomes more distinct, longer, and more impactful. This is not a mental illusion. It is a powerful example of how time is closely intertwined with perception. Therefore, solitude is inevitable for understanding time. A quiet mind feels the veins of time more clearly. Perhaps this is why great thinkers, mystics, and scientists have preferred solitude, because only when we are alone does time speak to us directly. We usually think of time as an abstract concept. It cannot be touched or seen. However, many physical processes perceive time as if it were matter. For example, the energy loss of a system is measured by time. This is time behaving as if it were something that can be exhausted. Perhaps time is not matter, but an experience that can be materialized. The relationship between energy and time is one of the best examples of this. When an object's energy decreases, time flows more slowly for it. Time bends around heavy objects. These examples suggest that time behaves like a medium. Perhaps time is not something that flows through space. It is a semi-physical structure that changes shape along with matter. With this idea, time is not merely a backdrop. It is an active participant that directly influences events. Perhaps time has a density. Some moments contain more dense time, while others are more sparse. We perceive this through feelings like time is dragging on, or how quickly time has passed. Time does not simply pass, it becomes denser or sparser. Thinking of time in this way gives it a new physical value. Perhaps time is the only entity in the universe that is immaterial but can behave like matter. In this case, time is a bridge between physics and metaphysics. Aging is explained by the passage of time. But it is not time itself that ages us. It is our relationship with it. Two people of the same age may look very young, while the other carries the weariness of the years. This difference is not a product of time, but of the meaning and emotional weight we give to time. Concepts such as stress, anxiety, calendar tracking, and fear of aging turn time into an enemy. However, people who live in the moment and focus on rhythm rather than the calendar remain fresher because they do not fight against time. Our bodies respond biologically to our mental perception of time. Being at peace with time is as powerful a protector as youth. Seeing time as an enemy rather than a friend can break a person down both emotionally and physically. However, when we see time as a life partner, we learn to dance with it. Perhaps time is not something that ages us, but rather a teacher that makes us grow without us noticing. How we view time determines how we age. With this understanding, time becomes a measure of maturity, not aging. We age not because time passes, but because we choose to fight it. If we manage to befriend time, the years become mere numbers. Our spirit remains forever young. The universe was silent for billions of years. Stars were born and died. Galaxies collided. Black holes formed. But none of them noticed time. Perhaps time was a system that could only be completed through awareness. And that is why it created humans. Because only humans can think about the passage of time, measure it, and give it meaning. The mere existence of time was not enough. It needed to be felt, questioned, even rejected. This is where humans came into play. Consciousness made time visible. Perhaps the purpose of time was to create an eye that could recognize it, because just as time flows, there must also be a consciousness that witnesses that flow. This idea takes the nature of time to a whole new place. We don't just live in time, we give it meaning and become its complement. This is also a striking claim about humanity's place in the universe. We are not just a species. We may be the only medium through which time can understand itself. Time gained meaning with us, and we deepened with it. And perhaps that is why time does not escape us. It draws us in. Because what gains meaning in its endless movement is not just movement, it is awareness. And humans are time's way of looking at itself. The more we think about time, the more we realize that it is not a line, but a structure of consciousness intertwined in layers, each carrying its own secrets. Perhaps time does not progress. We are opening doors to different rooms within it, waking up to a different now each time. Time is not just something that passes. It is a force that shapes us, calls us, and sometimes draws us in. The real question we should be asking is, are we really experiencing time, or is time experiencing us? If you can't find the answer, that's great, because some questions are meant to be pondered, felt, and sensed. And this was just a small spark of that endless thought.